Calling this meeting to order. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Law, adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Board of Adjustment of the Township of Franklin has been provided. Can you call the roll, please?
Raymond Betterbid.
Here.
Laura Grauman.
Yes?
Donald Johnson.
Here.
Bruce McCracken has been asked to be excused. Alan Rich.
Here.
Robert Shepard.
Here.
Anthony Caldwell.
Here.
Gary Rosenthal as well has asked to be excused. Joel Reese.
Yeah.
Cheryl Regalia.
Here.
And as well, Chairman Thomas has asked to be excused.
Okay, I guess the next item is the minutes. Does somebody want to move the minutes?
I move to accept the minutes of the May 1st meeting.
Second.
Raymond Betterbid.
Yes.
Laura Grauman.
Yes?
Donald Johnson.
Yes.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Robert Shepard.
I wasn't here, so I don't think I can vote on that.
Oh. Sorry about that. Anthony Caldwell.
Yes.
Joel Reese.
Yes?
Cheryl Regalia.
Yes.
Oh, I was, yes, I wasn't here for the rest.
Well, okay. If
You're right. Got your name down. It's
you weren't here,
I was not done.
But I watched it on TV.
but you didn't attend that meeting.
No.
All right, so we'll.
You just need a
But
majority.
just no vote.
Okay, does somebody else want to officially move those minutes?
Yeah, because I moved it and I forgot it wasn't.
I move we approve the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we're now up to resolutions. First one being Chen and Wu. Anybody want to, do I hear a motion?
Move that we pass the resolution. You want me to say the docket number?
Docket number ZBA 13-0001.
I'll second that.
Raymond Betterbid.
Yes.
Laura Grauman.
Yes?
Donald Johnson.
Yes.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Robert Shepard.
I was not here again, I'm not gonna,
Sorry about that. The cheat sheet was not indicated. I apologize. Anthony Caldwell.
Yes.
Joel Reese.
I wasn't here then.
All right. And Cheryl Regalia.
Yes. I don't think I voted
The
on it.
next resolution is Kenneth Hague, ZBA 14-00006.
Second.
Wait a minute, we need a motion.
Move that we pass the resolution for Kenneth Hague, docket ZBA 14-00006.
second.
Raymond Betterbid.
Yes.
Laura Grauman.
Yes?
Donald Johnson.
Yes.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Robert Shepard.
Nope.
Out.
And we'll correct these if somebody was not, we'll get all the yes votes possible. We'll make sure the record reflects.
The only remaining one is
Appropriate.
Cheryl.
Okay, Cheryl Regalia, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. The next item on the agenda are vouchers. The June and July retainers and various matters. The retainers are for $1,730. The various matters are for $780. Do I hear a motion?
I move to accept the June and July retainers and various matters for Patrick Bradshaw.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Raymond Betterbid.
Yes.
Laura Grauman.
Yes?
Donald Johnson.
Yes.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Robert Shepard.
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell.
Yes.
Joel Reese.
Yes?
Cheryl Regalia.
Yes.
Okay, now we need Mr. Lamford. The next item is a request for relief from conditions, St. Thomas Syro Malabar Catholic Church INC ZBA 10-00028.
It's better to be needed than to be wanted. Good evening, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. Peter Lamford appearing on behalf of the applicant. I appeared before this board on behalf of St. Thomas for a approval for a house of worship on Elizabeth Avenue, which approval was granted by this board unanimously in 2011. The reason I am back here tonight is the church is under construction. When we appeared originally, if the board recalls, there were two structures, the church itself and a fellowship hall. And when we presented the testimony for the fellowship hall, we indicated that the fellowship hall would have a pitched roof and that the HVAC equipment would be located on the ground, as is the case with the church. The board, in preparing the resolution, reflected that in the testimony of Mr. Collins, our architect. As they started building the building or preparing the plans, they decided to change the fellowship hall from a pitched roof to a flat roof, and then wanted to put the mechanical equipment on the roof. I believe Mr. Collins, the architect, spoke to Mr. Healy about this when he decided to make the change. And under normal circumstances, it probably would have meant a field change as part of the construction of the building. But since the resolution did reflect that the mechanicals were going to be placed on the ground behind the building and not on the roof, Mr. Healy recommended that we seek a relief of condition because that was one of the stipulations of the approval. Quite frankly, I think if the board recalls the application and looks at the exhibit that I submitted, especially the last sheet, SK13, the building that is in question where we're looking to put the equipment on the roof and not screen it is hardly visible from any street. It is shielded from Weston Road by the existing building. You cannot see it, and you can hardly see it from Elizabeth Avenue. So it's not a question of creating an eyesore or anything of that nature. And if the board recalls, the building was set back substantially from both roadways, and probably the closest structure to it is the high school. So other than the fact that we had stipulated that during the hearing, we're here asking relief so that we can, in fact, complete the building with the mechanical equipment on the roof.
Just out of curiosity, is there a reason why the architecture was changed from pitched roof to flat roof?
I don't know. I don't know if when the architect talked to Mr. Healy, he explained why, but I don't know.
They're on. Just make sure to speak closer.
Yeah,
Are they not?
we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I feel like an ad.
There you go.
The question was, if he knew what the reason was for the changing of the roof line from a pitch to a flat roof.
I'm not sure that was a change. What, at
It
the
was-
time of the approval, it was a pitched roof?
Originally, it was a pitched roof, and that's why we put obviously, the mechanicals on the ground, and then they decided to
Otherwise
change
they
it.
fall down.
Then they
I mean, it
decided
was a
to...
number of years ago, so when it was originally
Well,
approved.
Mr.
so
Collins, if you recall, the architect came and talked to you about the change, and that's why you recommended we come to the board to discuss it. And the question was, did he explain to you why they changed it? He didn't...
Well, I remember the discussion probably about 4 or 5 months ago for originally, the mechanicals were supposed to be on the ground behind the building. And I remember him coming to me and asking me, well, is it okay if I put them on the building, on the roof? I looked in the resolution, and the specific condition of the approval was that it had to be in the back. So since it was a specific condition, they have to come back before the board.
I mean, as a
I don't remember there being
practical
a
matter, it
discussion of
doesn't
moving from a sloped roof to a flat.
Okay. It was an inquiry. As a
Yeah.
practical matter, does it change my opinion on the
Okay.
application?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I was going to have the architect here this evening, but he had a conflict and couldn't be here and left me alone.
Well, I think the pictures show, so the last sheet, does that show, that shows the buildings, right? And then the buildings there's little darker marks on the building. Are those the locations of the roof-mounted equipment?
It is, and if you noted, yeah, they are located toward the rear, and also that last sheet shows the sight lines, which make it almost impossible to see the equipment.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, it's almost impossible to see the building, period.
Right. I agree, yes. Would I be out of order just to
Go ahead.
entertain a motion that just to cut off?
Well, we got to open to the public.
Okay,
Yep.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Just the screening part. What's the function of the screening other than visibility?
Usually, if you put mechanicals on a roof and the building is closer to a roadway for aesthetics, the town normally requires that screening be put around the mechanicals so they're
Only
not seen.
visibility then?
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
aesthetics and visibility.
All right.
And again, this building is set so far back, and I quite frankly travel Weston Road almost every day, and I look back there and I have no chance of seeing that building.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody in the public have any questions, comments? Seeing none, closing the public. I'll entertain a
Right,
motion.
I entertain a motion that we approve the change of the position of the mechanicals on ZBA 10-00028 as requested in the relief of condition.
Do I hear a second?
Second,
Raymond Betterbid,
yes.
Laura Grauman,
Yes.
Donald Johnson,
Yes.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell,
Yes.
Joel Reese.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next matter on the agenda is Phuoc Duyen Buddhist of New Jersey, INC, ZBA 14-00003, and that has been carried to September 18th, 2014, and no further notice is required. So if you're here for that matter, it will not be heard tonight. It will be heard on September 18th, and you will not be receiving any further notice. The next matter on the agenda is Daniel J. Cook, ZBA 14-00009, is the hardship variance. Mr. Cook?
Mr. Cook, you come up actually right to the table and hopefully turn on the microphone. I think there's 2 buttons on it. There might be one on the bottom and one on the side. Nope. Okay. If you'll raise your right hand for me. Do you
Oh, by the way, speak right into the mic.
do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And your name just for the record?
Daniel J. Cook.
Okay. This is basically your opportunity to tell the board what it is you want to do and why.
Basically, I guess we just gave you the elevations. That's what I was told to provide. So we're looking to put a master bedroom suite onto the house over an existing structure. Because of family needs, would like to enlarge the kitchen to the back. That really, the back was not a problem, my understanding, in speaking with the zoning officer, distance-wise. And put an additional one-car, one-story garage onto the side. That would encroach the existing side yard. The addition would not encroach the master bedroom, because it's going over an existing garage, would not encroach the front yard, but the kitchen would encroach into the backyard where I had plenty of distance. So the real,
I'm sorry, say again? The kitchen would encroach?
it would go to the back of the house where I have plenty of room up to the border. The only real question would be putting the one-car garage onto the existing 2 would go to the one side. That side, while it does encroach on that side yard, that area my next neighbor over, the way our houses are situated, we're all close to the eastern side of our lots. So they would not really, the garage would not really be closer to their house because there's a driveway, yard, septic field that separates them. So it's not like I'm building right on top of them. They're still up to the far side. There was an issue by the Board of Health, or a question rather raised by the Board of Health about whether or not the existing septic, because we're all on septic there. And it's a 6-acre zone, so that's why I'm here for a hardship variance. I had to do this 30 years ago.
And also, you're dealing with side yard variances.
Right. I had to do this 30 years ago when I first built the house. So the concern about the septic is we're not adding a bedroom. Actually, we're going to lose a bedroom because that's the way that you'd be able to get into the other bedroom,
Okay, so.
or the new bedroom.
So that, then the Department of, the health officer's concern is,
It's
It's no
it's
bed-
still going to be the
it's
same number of
okay.
bedrooms.
And the one bedroom will turn into a hallway, is that what you're saying?
Well, I didn't show the full plans because I wasn't asked to, but that room is going to essentially be an entryway and a laundry area. We, like many people, have had our family suddenly get larger, and it doesn't look like it's going to change, so I have 2 grandchildren and a daughter living with me now, and my wife says she needs a place to go and close the door.
Are you adding the kitchen and the foyer addition too? I mean, that's what your application says.
The kitchen would be, because we're all going to be eating together, we're just going to expand the dining room. It's not a very big house to start with when I built it, so we're going to expand the dining room to where the kitchen is. The kitchen goes out back, but that also is needed because there would be no other way to get back into the basement. Right now, I have an outside cellar door there, which would go where the kitchen is going to be. So that would provide a way to come and go from that master bedroom,
Into the
Down.
basement?
yeah, and into the backyard.
So that, would you now have an interior stairway into the basement, or it would still be
Well,
exterior?
we still do. That's kind of like
Oh,
the kids' playroom. So if
Okay.
we wanted to get down in there, if I wanted to get down in there without having to interrupt them, I would come down that stairway.
Now, it looks to me like, as I look at the lot area table, and maybe you can help me with this, Mr. Healy. I assume that the area and frontage, they already have variances for that? If it's.
I don't know if they did.
I
I
think
mean,
we
in order
should
to
probably-
build, I don't think the zoning in that area has changed, so in order to build, I assume they had to have received those variances at that time.
Okay. What we are dealing with, however, is a change to any one side yard, a total of 2 side yards, and although, and let's see, required, no, we don't need the rear yard. The rear yard is okay. So it's just the side yard variances that we're talking about.
Yeah. And I think one thing that should be noted is that although it's in the A zone, this is located in the area of Amwell. Pretty much when you make the right, you go down Amwell, then there's the single-family neighborhoods. I believe the R40 district boundary is very close to this property, and then there's kind of a few properties similar in size to this one that happen to be located in the A zone, but obviously have not been developed in that manner. So that there is kind of a particular situation with regard to this lot and the ones, the few lots around it. It's not in a rural area characterized necessarily by all 6-acre lots, is the point.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Chris, you're doing the one-car attached garage, one-car garage too, also?
Yeah, that's where the side yard encroachment was. Actually, the A zone runs through the neighbor next to me's side yard down there between them and the Jacksons. And that's where, so we were kind of stuck in that little area there where there were 4 lots. The folks originally 30 years ago or 35 years ago when they sold that property as a buffer to the Hutchison Forest. They were allowed to subdivide out 4 parcels. And I got the last one of the 4.
Cheryl?
Did you, on the garage side, is there a house on the property next door?
Yeah, but it's all the way against, our lots are the same size, so it's 25 feet off the eastern side.
So how far do you think it is away from your house right now?
They're about 24 feet wide, so 50, 75. They're 100 feet away.
Okay. And is there landscaping along your
Yeah.
property line?
Yeah, we've kind of kept it all
And what-
natural.
So it's trees and shrubs, or
Yeah.
what is it? Okay.
Cedars,
Okay. All right.
trees, chokecherry, and we intend to keep it that way.
All right, thank you.
Did you discuss this with your neighbors?
Absolutely.
And you've gotten no adverse?
No.
Anybody else?
Mark, I got a question. The size of the septic tank, that's determined by the number of bedrooms in the house? Is that what?
That's my understanding, yes.
Talk
Not
louder.
the number of people?
It's the number of bathrooms. That's, bathrooms or bedrooms, one or the other.
Bedrooms?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Either way, it's, I believe it got reviewed, did it get reviewed by Health? Health did do a report.
Yeah, but what he was saying is that the number of bedrooms is not changing. That Health made its report based on the,
Yeah, he'll have to work that out and explain that to the Health Department, because they have made the comment, they were under the understanding that a bedroom was being added, but perhaps they didn't understand that, I guess you were taking away some space, so they have to work that out with Health and do whatever the Health Department requires them to do, if anything.
right.
Yeah. Years ago when I built, Mike Bunk was the health official, going back then. It was designed for 4 bedrooms, so we're not adding a bedroom. That bedroom becomes a passageway.
Okay. I guess since we have no more comments up here, I'll open this up to the public. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this application? All right. Seeing none, I'll close the public portion. Does anyone have a motion?
Okay, I move to grant the variance on ZBA 14-0009 with the provisions that the applicant meets Health Department inspection on the septic tank, on the septic area.
Is there a second?
Second.
Raymond Betterbid,
Yes.
Laura Grauman,
Yes?
Donald Johnson,
Yes.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell,
Yes.
and Joel Reese.
Yes.
Okay, good luck. The next item on the agenda is Soccer Center LLC, ZBA 14-00010. Mr. Lamford.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of Soccer Centers, Inc. This is an application for a height variance. In the year 2002, Soccer Centers received a site plan approval to construct their facility on Memorial Drive off Cottontail Lane, which is basically a air-suspended recreational structure for indoor soccer. They received their approval in 2000 and have been in operation since then. When we appeared before the planning board, because the use is a permitted use, we did have a height variance at that time of 54.9 feet, but it was handled by the planning board because if the height deviation is less than 10%, it goes to the planning board. We are now looking to replace the bubble that is there, and I will offer testimony as to why we need to replace it and why we are seeking the height variance. So I'm going to call as my first witness, Mr. Cull. Stand up, please.
You make sure his microphone's working, just so. It is. Okay. Sir, if you raise your right hand, you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
I
Are you
do.
sure it's- Yeah, it's working.
You guys.
I do.
Okay. And spell your last name for me.
Cull.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Cull, you are one of the principals in the entity known as Soccer Center LLC,
Yes,
and, or Inc., actually. And you operate the facility at Memorial Drive and have operated it since its inception. Is that
Yes.
correct?
that's correct.
And the facility that you operate is an air-suspended bubble,
Yes,
and that was constructed in about 2000.
yes.
And you are looking to replace the bubble at this time?
Yes, we are.
And why are you looking to replace it?
They have a lifespan of about 14, 15 years, and we're at the end of the lifespan.
Okay, and in replacing the bubble, the footprint of the bubble doesn't change, is that correct?
That's correct.
So whatever was approved by the planning board in 2000 will remain the same as to the area, is that
Yes,
correct?
That's correct.
And you are proposing to construct a new bubble and are looking for a height variance, is that correct?
That's correct.
And why are you looking for a height variance?
The snow melt on the, the removal of the snow, it slides off on both sides, and with the higher height variance, you have a greater angle, and the snow slides off better. So to reduce the possibility of a collapse from snow buildup, the height, the increased height would be better for the bubble.
And having gone through this past winter, what problems did you encounter with the existing bubble this past winter?
Well, a lot of the bubbles did go down in New Jersey because of the snow. We kind of babysit our bubble, and we were okay with it. But we've had a partial collapse where it dimpled. Basically, what happens is all the snow starts to slide down into the middle, and if it continued to snow and we didn't get that melted off, we would have had an issue. So, we were able to pop the bubble back up and increase the air pressure, and I stayed that day, and we just kind of babysat it that night. But with the increased height, that snow won't dimple; it'll just slide off.
Okay. As far as the operation of the facility, the change in the height of the bubble doesn't change your operation whatsoever, is that
No.
correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And we're here because we need a height variance. Now, can you describe to the board where you're located and the change in topography from basically not only from Memorial Drive where your frontage is, but also from Cottontail Lane, which is the nearest road to you?
Okay, from Cottontail Lane, we're probably about 7 or 8 feet higher, lower in elevation from the main road. As you come down Cottontail Lane along Poland Spring Water, when you get to our site, the bubble is actually recessed another 3-4 feet, and we have a retaining wall around that front of the site. So we're down, we could be down probably about 10, 11 feet from that main road.
Okay. And is there also some heavy tree cover around the subject property?
Along the western and the southern parts of the bubble, we're completely covered with trees.
Okay. And there was only one report that was generated in conjunction with this application, and that report, well, the health department raised the question about the kitchen, and can you just briefly describe how this transition from the old bubble to the new bubble is going to take place?
Well, what they're going to do is you're going to deflate the new bubble, the vinyl comes down. What they plan on doing is taking the old vinyl and basically cutting around the old vinyl and then putting up the new vinyl. So you're going to have a layer of the old vinyl that's going to protect the artificial turf and the kitchen and everything that's there. They do build, over the kitchen, they're going to build some scaffolding to basically support that weight of that bubble, that vinyl. So when it does come down, it'll be supported, and we won't have to do any kind of interior changes and so forth for the kitchen or any of the offices.
And you have no problem coordinating with the health department and Patty Elliott to make sure whatever you're doing, the kitchen, if it needs to be re-inspected, after the new bubble goes up, it'll be re-inspected, correct?
That's correct.
And how long does this process take of getting rid of your old bubble and putting your new one up?
About a week.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Just out of curiosity, are there other bubbles in New Jersey that are of this height?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there's one in Flemington that I think is about 120 feet high.
So the Health Quest bubble. It's all a derivation of your spans and so forth as to what height they're recommending now. So they have a bigger bubble. Their bubble is about twice the size of ours. I'm not sure what the Rutgers height is, but I know it's bigger than ours as well because they have a larger span. The Rutgers bubble's about twice the size as what we are too.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Okay.
If the board had a chance to review the memo from the TRC, it basically shows you the location of the site, so it gives you the location. Basically, it's off of Memorial Drive, kind of back behind warehouses, surrounded by industrial uses on one side and then woods on the rear. Shows you the appearance of the site, so it kind of gives you the context. And then once you look at that and then look at the applicant's submittal, they give you the site plan. Nothing's changing with respect to the site plan per se. And then on the diagrams, they give you a cross-section that show the existing bubble, then they show the proposed. So I think you get a kind of a good picture of what the applicant is proposing.
Okay, I'm going to open this up to the public. Anybody have any questions or comments of the applicant? Seeing none, I will close the public session. Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the petition of the applicant on ZBA 14-00010, the Soccer Center LLC, for a new dome as slightly higher height as described in the report.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Raymond Betterbid,
Yes.
Laura Grauman,
Yes.
Donald Johnson,
Yes.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell,
Yes.
Joel Reese.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, raise the roof.
I guess this is your night. The next item,
Every night is his night.
that's
Oh,
true.
he rented the board for tonight.
The next item is the Chinese Christian Church in Somerset, INC, ZBA 14-00008, and it's a site plan, site plan with use variance.
If you'll give me about 30 seconds so we can set up, and then I'll start.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to find out.
No different. No different. Yeah. All I do is pump it over.
What they got is not what they want.
That's been there many years.
Next up,
Look at, he's got his whole team here.
Actually, it's an interesting team. He's gone. Yeah, don't know. He was down by in the South Brunswick building in Kendall Park. No, he's gone now. He's gone.
Wow.
Pants must have gone on fire so bad, it burned up. 30 seconds is up, Mr. Lanford. We're trying to move along quickly here tonight.
Good evening again. Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant. This is an application on behalf of the Chinese Christian Church, which is located on Hamilton Street at the intersection of Matilda Avenue. The church at the present time has 3 structures. There are 2 structures, the front along Hamilton Street, the church and what we call the office building, which used to be a house, or an I don't want to say office building, but the office, which used to be a house, and a 3rd building, which is located on Matilda, directly behind the church. This application is basically to replace the old building behind the church with a new building. I will describe to you through the testimony of the pastor what takes place at the church. It has been taking place there for many years. The proposed application doesn't change anything vis-a-vis the operation of the church when they conduct services, what they do, but it is to modernize the building, and you'll hear testimony from the architect of the condition of the old building and the new building that we're proposing to replace it with. I also want to say that this is sort of unusual in that we have an application and I did not receive a planning report or an engineering report, so obviously these plans have to be perfect. So we're sort of going to wing it, but I think basically, as you know, if the engineering department has some issues that we need to sit down and talk to them or work with them, we'll be happy to sit down and talk to them, but I don't know why the reports were not issued, but we don't have any. Having...
For the planning, Mr. Healy, do you have, I guess since you're here,
I'll offer comments as we go.
okay.
You didn't think it was perfect, though, did you?
We'll see.
I will call as my first witness Pastor Wisman.
Yep, I even have to swear in pastors. Solemnly swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And just give me your spelling of your last name, please.
Whisman.
Okay, thank you.
You can be seated, Pastor. Pastor, you are one of 3 pastors at the Chinese Christian Church?
I am.
Okay. And do you know how long the Chinese Christian Church has been operating at its present location?
From 1988.
Okay. When did you come on board as one of the pastors?
2008.
Okay. Can you indicate to the board the mission of the church and what it does?
We are a Christian non-denominational church, and we had our beginning as an Chinese ethnic church from some students from Rutgers University, and actually the church started in Metuchen, and they're all followers of Jesus Christ as their Lord, and so they formed a church, and then in 1988 moved to Franklin Township, Somerset.
Okay, and at the present time, you conduct services there, is that correct?
Yes.
And when do you conduct your services?
We have a schedule that's multifaceted. So at 9:30, everything begins.
This is on a Sunday?
On a Sunday, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. 9:30, and we have 3 congregations that meet in the building. One congregation speaks Cantonese, one speaks Mandarin, and one speaks English. And I am the pastor of the English ministry. So at 9:30, the Cantonese-speaking congregation worships, and the Mandarin and English-speaking congregations have their Bible classes. And so we use all 3 buildings for that to occur. And then at around 11 o'clock, we do the switch. So the Cantonese congregation then goes to Bible classes along with the children, and then the Mandarin and the English congregations meet for worship, again, using different places in all 3 buildings.
Okay, and as I described the buildings, I want to go into them in a little bit more detail. The main church and sanctuary, that is the main worship area, is that correct?
Yes.
And are there any other functions or things that take place within that building?
You mean in the main building?
Yes.
We have a fellowship hall, and we also use that as a worship area, as well as a multi-purpose for fellowship, for eating, things like that, snacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other building that fronts on Hamilton Street to the left of the church is where your office, the offices are located?
We have some offices there, as well as that is, one room is for a nursery
And
for
that
the services.
And that nursery is during services on
Right.
Sunday?
Yes.
And then the building to the rear on Matilda, which we're looking to replace, what do you do with that building?
It's primarily used for classrooms, and then also our youth ministry uses part of that building.
Okay. And you said the services start at about 9:30 on Sunday, and what time do they normally end?
Between 12:30, 12:45, and then people hang around for what we call fellowship afterwards, till 1:30.
Okay. And how many members are in your congregation?
Attenders, I could say, regular attenders are anywhere from 250 to 275 total.
Okay, that's families including children?
Yes.
Okay. And where do the members who attend the church park?
They park in the 25 spaces that are within our own property, the parking, and then also they use the street parking, and then we also have a parking license with Levin Management, the Tropical Food Market. Between that string of stores and the firehouse, there is a spot that is designated that we've encouraged our people there to park there. There's 60 parking spaces there, though they have said to us that we can use as many as we need, but 60 is more than we need. So.
Okay. And you've never had an issue with parking or during the years that you've been there?
No.
Okay. Now, in addition to the Sunday services, are there any other times that any of the buildings are being used?
Yes. We have Friday night when we use pretty much all three buildings again for what we call fellowships. It's a lower attended, maybe about 100 people on average come to that. That includes from nursery up through as old as you can be. So our youth ministry is also active on Friday nights. And then on Wednesday mornings, we have an English class. It's for immigrants who are trying to learn English. And we use primarily some of the main building, mainly just to heat up food, and then primarily use what we call affectionately the Matilda House, which is the house that's located.
What are the hours on Friday?
Friday, the hours are from 8 to 10, roughly. Some people will hang around after 10 o'clock, but it's officially done at 10, yeah. And then Wednesdays, it's from 9:30 to 12 for the class.
Okay.
The English class, yeah.
And do all of your activities take place within the confines of the buildings?
Yes.
Okay. And the application that we have before the board is to replace the Matilda building with a new building?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as the activities that take place, the hours that you worship, the classes that you offer, if the board were to approve this, nothing would change. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. The only thing that is somewhat different, the nursery that is currently in the house that is on Hamilton Street, that would be relocated into the new building?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can, Mr. Lanford, have the activities, I assume that that there was a resolution approving this church to begin with. Have all of these activities and so on been addressed in a prior resolution?
I did not handle the original application. I don't know if I have the prior resolution. There was a hearing in 2004 on this matter that Mr. Ordman handled. I can look at that. I do know historically, I don't know what conditions were imposed on the original approval, but that's the way this church, the facility has operated since almost its inception.
Well, Pete, in line with Laura's question, can you tell us and the board what variances you need? I mean, because I'm trying to figure out which D variance you need, and that will basically, I think.
The church is a permitted use, in a permitted conditional use in the Hamilton Street Business District.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to have Mr. Ordman go through all the variances later, but primarily, as is typical with every church that I've been here before, we don't meet the parking requirements. There is a question as to whether there is even a requirement for buffering, and that could be subject to interpretation, because we front on 3 streets, and on the 4th side, we're adjacent to a commercial building. Depending how Mr. Healy, since he hasn't issued a report, I don't know if he interprets that there is a buffering requirement or not, but basically those are it. All of the other, there are some bulk variances that are in place. I believe there's one that's going to be created as a result of this application. I'll have Mr. Ardman deal with all those variances.
Okay, so, since nothing's changed except you're adding a building, are you looking at this as an expansion? Or is that throwing a condition off? See, that's what I'm just trying to figure out, because it may save you time. I mean, you've already gone into a lot of testimony.
Right.
If you already have that in your pocket, so to speak, and it's been taken care of, I haven't seen that resolution yet. I just wanted to, and you can do it through your expert.
Yeah, the 2004 resolution were some minor site modifications. I don't know what the original resolution said as far as the operations. Quite frankly, back in 15, 20 years ago when they started, resolutions normally didn't go into the detail that they are today, with the board defining the hours, saying this is what you can do or you can't do, which is what this board has done over the last couple of years. This is the way we've operated. I wanted to spread it on the record that that's what we've been doing. To say that there were conditions imposed by hours for the original approval, I can't say that, but I just wanted to make sure the board is aware of what goes on and that nothing is changing.
Okay. I just didn't want you to put into play all those variables if you thought maybe you'd lose some ground.
No, I'm not looking to lose ground. I know this board is always curious as to how a church functions, and that's always been important, so I wanted to make sure the board was aware of what we were doing, and there is a track record.
I'm going to quote you on that at some point.
What, that I don't want to lose ground?
But you're not really in it, you're not here to looking to lose ground.
You know, it's the right attitude to have. Okay. But I will Mr. Ardman will deal with the variances, both existing and proposed, and we can do that during his testimony.
Okay. Were you done with this?
Yes, I'm done with this witness.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. There was an item in the police safety report about
Talk louder.
There's an item in the police safety report about having bollards between parking spaces on the western side of the lot and the playground for safety reasons.
Joel, up closer to the...
Oh,
Let me just cut you off real quick. The question's about, I think that's probably a question for the site engineer.
okay.
When we get to that at that point.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
No.
Cheryl?
Can you tell us what the impetus is for the new building? You testified that you're going to be doing essentially the same things inside of there, so is it, I'm not going to testify for you, but...
I can, you'll hear the next witness, who's the architect. There are numerous code violations. The Matilda building is in pretty bad shape, and we're looking to replace it because it just doesn't work, and it also has various violations. As a matter of fact, we've been working with the township. They've allowed us to use it while we're processing our application, and if we don't get an approval, we may not be able to use the building for much longer. It just doesn't meet current code requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Laura, I do have
Yeah.
another one, which is not from, the health department is asking whether there's a daycare center there in the church?
There will not be a daycare center.
Okay, and then they're asking, what's the purpose of the 2 kitchens?
2 kitchens in the building we're proposing?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, well, one, if you want to call it a kitchen, I think it's just a sink, and there's no stove. It's for a nursery area. So there's a sink to wash, and then a toilet, I think. Is there anything else in there?
That can't possibly be a kitchen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know where the 2 kitchens come from,
Yeah,
but
I'll have the architect describe.
the other kitchen in the,
In case those,
Yeah.
You have that, Peter.
I saw the report, and the architect will describe what
Okay.
was there. I don't think there are two kitchens, but
The other kitchen is just simply for warming food up.
Okay.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
A few
Anybody
questions.
else?
Few questions, if I could. Could you describe, I mean, it looks like the buildings are slightly different in terms of the existing versus the proposed. The proposed seems to be somewhat larger
Yes.
in footprint, and then it's, full 2 stories. You had indicated that something was moving from the house in the front to the back. What activity is that?
Well, what we call the office, the little building next to the main building,
Okay.
is our nursery. We have a room in there for the nursery. We're going to move that over to the new building because we can naturally build that building, part of it with little toilet and an area that would be much more suitable for the work that we'll be doing or
Okay.
caring for those infants, toddlers, yeah.
Okay. And excuse my ignorance, but what's the difference between a nursery and a daycare? What
We
is that
just call it nursery in the sense that it's where the infants, toddlers are cared for while we're having service.
Okay.
Volunteers care
So
for them,
meaning
watch
by
them.
daycare, I mean during the week, there's not a
No.
daycare service
No,
provided? Okay.
we're not looking to get into that kind of business.
Okay. Now, currently, so under the proposed plans, there are a number of classrooms on what's called, what's called the basement. It's actually, well, it looks like it's a full,
We've
full
debated
three-story
too, we
building.
call it ground floor or,
Okay. So there's a total of, looks like 7 classrooms. What are is that for Sunday school?
yes. Right now, what we call the Matilda House has roughly almost the same amount of rooms, but they're all very small because it used to be a house, so they're just very small. So what we wanted to do is capture the space of the garage. It's a 2-car garage we use mostly for storage, and make that then into classrooms and things for all 3 levels.
Okay.
Because now it's an A-frame and
And is there, and then there's an assembly room. What's the purpose of that room?
that'll be dual purposes. One is our Cantonese congregation meets over in the main building, and we have to flip-flop, the time schedule like I mentioned before.
Okay.
And we were thinking of possibly, we're not sure yet, but possibly that would be an option to have, it's a smaller congregation, about 50, 60 people, and they could come and meet there, and it's handicap accessible, where our main building isn't so handicap friendly, but this building will be.
Okay.
So we were thinking of that. Plus, our youth ministry could meet there as well on Friday nights, in a larger assembly room.
And is the main worship area in the building at the corner?
Yes.
Okay. Is there, with with this, is there any change to the amount of worship space proposed on the
No.
campus?
No.
Okay. Would services be held in the building at the corner and the assembly room at the same time?
Possibly. But right now, we're just considering keeping them at the same schedule. Because changing schedule is quite a trauma for,
Okay.
people, any kind of change. So
But if services were held in both buildings at the same
it
time?
would all be within that 9:30 to 12:30 timeframe.
Okay.
We might juggle it around in there, but it would
Okay.
still stay within that.
Would that change, do you think, the parking demand for the site if?
No, because right now, people are coming and going throughout that period, so the 250, 275 are never there all at the same time, per se.
Okay. Okay, and the main reason, again, you said seems like the main purpose of this building is basically for the congregation that's already there.
Right.
Basically the same number of classrooms, but the classrooms basically being brought up to modern standards. It
Right.
seems like and actually built
That's
for
why
the
we're
purpose
excited
that they're
about
being
this, yeah.
used for.
Right, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to open this to the public. Now, the purpose of this time is just questions for this witness. Okay, seeing none. Next witness.
Mr. Kassane?
It's like on a short leash. Solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And the spelling of your last name, please.
Kassane, Kissane.
Thank you.
Mr. Kassane, you're a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and have you appeared before this board on previous occasions?
Yes, I have.
I would offer the testimony of Mr. Kassane as an architect.
Accept it.
Mr. Kassane, you were retained by the applicant to prepare the architectural plans for the new Matilda building.
Yes, yes,
All right.
it was.
Before we talk about the new building, have you been to the subject property and have you been through the old building?
Yes, yes, I have.
All right, can you indicate to the board what the condition of the existing building is and why we are really here today?
Well, the existing building, a long time ago, was built as a center hall colonial. And-
Mr. Kassane, is that a picture of the building?
No, that's the new building.
Oh, how
Not the-
depressing. Okay,
not the
all right.
old one. So as a center hall colonial, everything was residential. Somewhere along the way, it became an assembly building, but it still has all the parts and pieces of a residential building. The doors are not fire rated, the hallways are very narrow, the circulation through the building. The circulation through the building now is a bit dangerous, especially in a smoke condition. The electric is questionable. We had great discussion about whether to tear it down, whether to fix it. The local fire inspector has been very patient, very kind, allowing us to continue to use the building. But quite honestly, it has seen better days and its time is up. So it's time, we're going to knock it down. Take it right out of the ground, basement, footings, start all over again.
Okay. And can you approximate the size of the existing building?
The existing building is 74 by 28, and it has a couple jogs in it. That's an approximate, 74 wide by 28 deep. Now, the new building is 80 feet wide, so it's approximately 6 feet, or 6 feet longer. And it's 40 feet wide. The other building was
I
28.
mean, 40 feet deep.
Yes. So it's 12 feet. So in the depth dimension, it's a lot deeper. And we'll be going towards Matilda with that 12 feet.
Now, I have marked certain exhibits for you to present to the board. The first two exhibits that I did mark are what the building will look like from the exterior. Can you put those up on the easel? And then we'll go through the interior of the building after we go through the exterior.
And how did you mark them?
I marked I have two exhibits to show the exterior of the building. I think we'll go through those first, Mr. Kassane.
The exhibits are marked A4, and that consists of my architectural sheets, A4, 5, and 6. And those are the outside views of the building.
Okay. And then I've marked sheet 8, or exhibit A3, which are the interior of the building, and then I have the renderings as A1 and A2. So I will let you go through the exterior of the building with the renderings and A4.
Is it going to be built on a slab?
No. It's going to be a full basement. And that basement is, let's say, 4 feet below grade. So we really have like 2.5 stories above grade. I wanted to get some windows in the basement classrooms all the way around, so I picked the building up a little bit. The building will have a handicap ramp at the front door. This view right here, which is marked A1, is roughly, I guess we're on the corner of Matilda and Hamilton, looking at down Matilda. The building is going to have some polished concrete block with some beveled edges, very similar to this sample right here. As a base course, we'll have brick, probably the same color as the brick in this room, and that would take care of the first floor. The second floor, to save a little money, save a little weight, we'll have vinyl siding with AZEK, which is a white plastic lumber trim all around the building. for maintenance. This is the front elevation of the building.
A2?
When you say front, what does that mean? Does that face Matilda?
That faces Matilda, correct.
And what does the first rendering face?
First,
The one you just gave to
that's
Pastor.
that's more, if you were walking on Hamilton Street side, looking diagonally down Matilda, looking at this corner of the building.
Okay. Yep.
That's the handicap.
Now, I'm looking, there are access ramps, I assume, to the first floor. Is there any handicap access to
Then
the
there's
basement?
an elevator inside the building,
That was my, okay,
so the whole circulation in the building has to be handicapped accessible.
okay.
Okay, once you're inside the building. The shingles will be residential style asphalt shingles on the roof. The next exhibit is marked A3, and that's A1, and A2, and A3 of my plans. This is the floor plans of the building. Starting in the basement, we have two stairwells. We need two means of egress on each floor. A rear stairwell will go out towards the playground in the back. We have 4 classrooms.
Where's the elevator?
Elevator's right in the middle off center hallway.
Okay.
And there's handicap bathrooms on each floor also.
That was what raised my question
So-
when I took a look at the plans.
Mr. Healy's question as to why do we have a bigger building, why do we have more square feet? When you start adding up the handicap bathrooms and the bigger hallways, the means of egress that were never there before, you very rapidly go from the original 4,500 square feet approximately to our 9,922 square feet.
So the building's twice as big.
Floor space-wise, yes, yeah.
What does that mean? What, it's
The
twice as big?
the basement's really not used in the existing Matilda building. So
Okay.
I'm only counting 2,000 and 2,000 roughly on the existing Matilda, okay? Now I have 3 floors to count with the basement. Basement's usable. It's interesting, in the basement of the Matilda house right now, the kids have a band room set up where they can practice musical instruments, and the ceiling height is too low. It's not a legal space. You really can't use it and occupy it. So that's what some of these classrooms are for. The multipurpose room upstairs can be used for that also.
Okay, now, Mr. Ardman's drawings, it shows proposed community activity center, and it says 3,265 square feet. Is that each floor?
Roughly, yes.
Okay. All right.
Again, there's some overhangs and jogs that make the floors, but that's about
Okay.
right. Times 3 would be 9,900. On the first floor, again, we have offices for the pastor and the board of directors of the church. The kitchenette off of the nursery has, just to qualify this, it has a refrigerator and a sink. It's not a kitchen. Nothing is going to be served out of it to the general public. If the kids want a drink or something, a cold drink or something, that's what the kitchenette's for. The kitchen off of the lobby, however, is a full kitchen. And sometimes the congregation has sit-down meals, and they would use this lobby area right off the kitchen for that purpose. Again, it's 2 handicap bathrooms and our elevator. And up to the 2nd floor. I think we spoke about the assembly room possibly being for part of the congregation that's much smaller, doesn't need the full church. And the multipurpose room, of course, is for the kids. Also, 2 more classrooms on that floor.
And obviously, the new building will meet all of the current code requirements for health, fire, and safety, is that correct?
Yes, we don't have to do this. I can probably work the codes in our favor, but we are going to sprinkle this building. There's kids in this building. It's going to be a wood building. So we're going to spend the extra money and sprinkle it, all 3 floors.
Okay. And then in reviewing the layout, and you described the layout of the old building and comparing it to the new building, basically what we're doing is replicating in larger scale the rooms that were used by the congregation in the old building. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Also, just going back to Exhibit A1, we have a set of stairs that come out on the left side of that exhibit, and those stairs are actually the stairs that go over and really are closest to the entrance to the church itself.
That's correct.
So that although there's a main entrance on Matilda, if people are going from the new building to the church, a lot of them would be going through the area of the stairs on the left side of the building, correct?
Well, in other words, that's the area where there's no road in between those stairs and the church.
There's a driveway.
There's a driveway.
There's a driveway.
But that's not a road, right?
Right.
No, it's not a
Good.
public road.
All right. Just trying to keep up.
Okay. I have no further questions, Mr. Kassane.
Tell me what the sleeping area is on the first floor. Is that part of the nursery?
Part of the nursery.
Does the existing building, over here, does the existing building have a multipurpose room, and does it have an assembly room?
You have to think of the existing building as a house. So bedrooms have been turned into classrooms. They're very
Okay.
small. Some of the bedrooms have been combined to make multi-purpose rooms.
Okay.
The basement is a multi-purpose room. That is illegal. So
You'd best not
if
discuss it.
if you ask me, is
Well,
it
let
a
me-
place of assembly? No, it's not.
Well, let me ask you this then. I mean, based on, I mean, you're obviously the project architect. Compared to the existing building and compared to this, what is the change in legal occupancy?
In what?
Generally, you know, how many people would be allowed to occupy the building in rough numbers?
Well, as this gentleman brought up, we have double the size, so it would probably be safe to say in occupancy, we have double the occupancy, because that's occupancy is based on square footage,
Okay.
all right?
And I figured the answer, but I think,
The answer to your question is the congregation has not gotten any bigger.
yeah, and I think that's really in my opinion, I think that's kind of the crux of the issue with this application, which is, and I'm not saying it's an issue, but I think it's something that the board needs to consider, which is, basically the site is static. You know, the site, they're losing 1 space. It's 25 spaces are on site now, and the proposal is 24. And the applicant is basically, they're indicating that this is kind of an in-kind replacement. In terms of, but what we've heard is, in terms of operation, it's going to be an in-kind replacement, but the size is going to get considerably larger.
And we're not dealing with septic, are we?
No.
No,
No.
but it relates, in my opinion, to the parking variance. There is a parking variance.
Yeah. no, I
And
understand that, but
practically, the question in my head is, and maybe it is in yours, is this, from a practical perspective, going to result in a higher parking demand for the site? I think you've addressed that in some ways, maybe through Mitch's testimony, and, I guess I'm not convinced yet that it's not going to, in some way, in a practical perspective, bring more people to the site. We have heard that, now there may be the potential to have worship in the main building and also in the assembly, which is not possible under the current situation. So is that going to bring more people to the site and result in more off-site parking?
The reason I asked about septic is because as often as not when these churches or whatever development is on septic, it's limited by the capacity of the septic, whereas
Yeah.
we haven't got that kind of limitation here now.
No, they would not here on Hamilton Street. Peter, do you wish to address that?
I'm going to let Mitch handle the parking issue.
Right.
Okay.
And I can recall the pastor to sort of go over the history of the members of the congregation, and has it grown over the years, and does he anticipate growth
Yeah,
as a result of this?
And I think part of it might be as well, how many, and he had indicated that there are 60 spaces off-site, that doesn't get used, filled, but, if there could be some indication of currently how many cars show up, and then how many cars are expected to show up under the proposed condition. Because it does relate to the, currently they're deficient in terms of parking, and they're going to continue to be so. And I think the board needs to be assured that the operation of the site's not going to change and make that situation worse.
Okay.
Joel?
Is there a written agreement with the other company on use of the shopping center?
There is a written license agreement with Levin Management that allows us to use the parking lot on Sundays, yes.
All right, so that should become part of this application, so we know. And how long is that license for?
It can be revoked, but right now we have unlimited use of that parking space. I mean, if they ever go to develop that center, right now, as the pastor described, and I did speak to counsel for Levin Management, if you look at the site where we use our parking, the area next to the firehouse is the area that they have designated for us to use, which the pastor indicated that they don't even fill. There is also, if you go by there, a sign that they're looking to lease out a pad site, so they may, if there's a user for that site, may put something there. There is also additional parking, and I've spoken to them, in the rear of the property, on the other side of the property, so they may relocate the license somewhere else on the property. Because again, there's very little going on within the confines of that center on a Sunday morning. So right now, they've given us a designated area to use. We use it. As long as it remains unused by them, we have the right to use it. I can provide the license agreement if...
Well, did the pastor indicate, did he indicate how many worshipers show up on a typical service? And then how many cars show up?
He didn't testify as to cars. He said basically that there were, I think, about 250 to 275 that come in and out during the course of that between 9:30 and 12:30. They're not all there at one time. I didn't ask him the question of cars. I don't know if he has the answer as far as the exact number of cars, but that's the number of people.
Okay.
But I can recall him and ask him the question if you want, Mr. Healy.
I'll leave that to the board if you think you need that information.
Yeah, it would be, why not?
Am I recalled?
You are recalled.
Yes.
It's still under oath.
Cars-wise, I don't know, because we don't all park in the same place, but it's interesting because we do have families coming together, and then also we have people that pick up elderly that don't drive, and then we also have an outreach to the Rutgers campus, so we have 20 to 30 students from Rutgers that we all drive, pick them up from the campus. Some of them drive themselves. They pack their cars and they come. So carpooling is very common in our congregation, probably because of the limited parking.
Well, so I assume that all of the on-site parking is used, yes?
Right, yeah.
So the issue is the overflow.
Yeah, how far do you want to walk? Yeah. It's not that far.
Yeah. It is let me ask these questions. There's street parking on Hamilton Street in front of the church.
Yes.
Is there street parking allowed on Matilda?
No.
is there street parking allowed on Victor?
Yes.
Okay. And I assume when your parking lot gets full, the first place, because it's the closest to the church, the congregants use the street parking on Hamilton Street and Victor before they go to the other parking lot.
Right, but we also tell our congregation members voluntarily when they arrive to park at the furthest spot,
Yeah.
so that those people who come later can have a closer spot.
Okay. And you indicated that the parking at the Levin property, they give you a license for 60 parking spaces. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you look out there on any given Sunday, how many of those parking spaces are in fact used?
I haven't noticed, but I know that there's been no complaints about
Okay.
trying to find the parking space.
You're
so.
too busy inside to check
Yeah.
parking? Okay.
Yeah. I've parked over there too, and there's always plenty of room to park.
Okay. And again, that shopping center on a Sunday morning, is there any activity? I mean, there's a market in there, but is there a lot of activity for the shopping center itself where your
There's
people park?
plenty of parking in front of them as well.
Okay, thank you.
Before we get your next witness, has anybody in the public got any questions for the architect? This is the time for questions, but not comments. Okay, seeing none, may I have your next witness, please?
Before we do that, I just want to ask the pastor, because I think the question was there going to be any increase in the number of parishioners at the church?
That is a great question, and we don't foresee that in a sense because we've been pretty static, small changes over the past years, but you don't know. But we're not pushing for that in a sense. We're not saying, oh, we're going to build this big building and then we're going to fill it and all that. No, that's not our goal. Mainly, the primary goal was we've been using this, and as you've heard, the township and us have been talking for years, and so we finally decided we need a new building to meet the needs that we already have. So, yeah. So the issue of moving one congregation to use the assembly room upstairs is basically the same what we're doing now. It's just more of a logistics of which congregation is going to use which room at which time. So we don't foresee that that's going to greatly increase that number of that congregation because they moved. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is that I was looking at the memo that you put out, Pete, about please be advised that this variance and preliminary final site plan will not increase the number of people attending the church.
Yeah,
So that, therefore, you're waiving or want to waive a traffic study.
That is correct. We've asked for a waiver of a traffic study. Basically, the church services are on Sunday. There are really no traffic issues along Hamilton Street that I think a traffic study would address or help the board in making their decision. If the board, in fact, felt that a traffic study would be necessary, we would gladly provide it to the board. I didn't think the church needed to incur that expense unless it was really important to the board, but I don't think there are any traffic problems on Hamilton Street on a Sunday morning, and that's why I asked for the waiver of the traffic study.
Did the county have any, it's a county road, did they
Right.
have any significant comments?
No, the county, because we're not affecting the county. I think we had to make a little change with the curb, but they had no comments.
Drive.
Yeah, we had to make a driveway apron improvement. Other than that, they were fine. And again, there are really no changes to the buildings on Hamilton Street. The building that we're changing is not on the county road.
Is Mr. Ardman your last witness, or have you got any others?
Mr. Ardman will be my engineer and planner.
Okay.
So if we can swear,
I'm trying to decide whether we should have a break now, or...
if you want to take one, that's,
Yeah, would that be all right?
Yeah, take a 5-minute
How
break.
about well, it's 10 minutes to, let's be
back
back by
around 10.
9 o'clock. Yeah. I've been drinking a lot.
What do you think, Jerry?
Great
It's a
meeting.
long break.
Through these things here.
sorry? Yeah, as acting chair, she gets to make that call.
How you doing?
Good, good.
Have you taken any time off?
Me?
Don't you do North Carolina?
Yeah, we did already. We were down there for the hurricane.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. We were down, it was beautiful weather all the way up until Thursday. Then Thursday morning, it started to get real crappy. And then by Thursday night, the wind was blowing 60 miles an hour. And then the next morning, the sky was nice, but you could only go in the water for 10 minutes at a time because if you try to stay in there longer than that, you'd get exhausted and whipped out to sea.
So they didn't kick you off?
No, we did not have to evacuate. So it's great. In fact, we went out to the end of the walkway to the beach and stood there in the 65-mile-an-hour wind and said, this ain't so bad. So it was fun. It was a good time. Yeah, it was real good.
Made it a little different.
How you doing? Good. How you been? Just fine. Just fine.
That's good.
Yeah, so we had a lot of fun. In fact, that's where I was giving you the instructions on how to make the...
Probably made some yourself then.
No, we didn't. In fact, we ate a lot of corn and Caesar salad. Those are the two vegetable things that managed to make it onto the tables. So, yeah, really good time.
So tell me more about the brewery.
The brewery. I'm talking to my son every day now because we've got our federal license.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that too. You don't tell me about it now.
Sure.
How you get it? 'Cause I have some clients that are interested in,
Yeah.
in doing something along those lines.
Yeah.
We're just talking about that.
Right. So you have an application to fill out. The weird part is the federal application doesn't cost any money.
Yeah.
They just get all their money when you make the beer. $12 a barrel.
What's the state? $1,200? Or is that more for?
Oh, in New York, 18.
Oh, you're in New York.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm 18 in New York, but the renewal license is cheaper. The initial license is more expensive. We had to go. Yeah. And the thing that's the craziest about doing this stuff is that you have to be really paying attention and read every word because there'll be little requirements in there that you won't see. For example, we had to have our fingerprints taken. We had the fingerprints taken within 2 weeks within 3 weeks after our state application was submitted. And they sent us a letter after 2 weeks and said, "Where's your fingerprints?" We said, "What are you talking about?" So they kind of told us. So that Monday, I got in my car and I went to New York City to this little hellhole.
From this
because they don't do fingerprints in town anymore, except if you're a criminal. Then you get the special treatment.
So what town is it?
Auburn, New York.
Okay, which is
Lake Owasco. It's one of the fingerprints.
Oh.
All the way by New
So it's
Brunswick.
based downtown in a multi-use building, and they had to build us a bathroom in the space.
Did you ever get
And rent is $800 a month. We have first year and $900 a month for the second. So we can handle
I
it.
talked to somebody who lived over there,
So it's about
and
was it
they
40
got
by
a dog
30?
specifically to guard the house. But the dog,
We're going.
as soon as
we're going
anybody
nano.
approached him,
We're using very,
wag
very
his
small.
tail,
We're making
go,
beer in
know,
10
lick them.
and 20
It's
gallon
like, great,
pits.
now I have a useless dog.
Yeah, maybe in Flounder. Yeah. They're all fucked up over there, those people. They're never open. Yeah, they're weird. So, I haven't even been in the place. But we're ready to rock. We're ready to go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what is that? What's your?
Well, we don't know. The state's got to give us our license. We're hoping to be open September 15th. So that's why I'm going up tomorrow.
Here's in the cardboard.
Appetite.
Well, it's not yet because we've just been really drinking it heavily. They had to make a whole bunch for the party, and then they had to make a whole bunch for the beach. And the
How many
beach,
dogs do you
that got consumed, the stuff we made for the beach got consumed in the first couple of days we were there.
Okay.
And now we've got we've got to start making it. So he was going to make it today. He was going to go brew beer, but he got a call from the state today saying, "Where's this? Where's that? Where's your application to collect sales tax?"
Yeah.
So he and I sat down and did that application. Got that all done. Got that in. And then, so tomorrow he's going to brew beer. He's going to brew Scottish tomorrow, and he's going to brew something else, but I can't remember what it is.
And what size? You said 20?
We're making
Are they
either in
aggressive with
10s or
other
20s
dogs?
Okay.
gallon, which is small.
Yeah.
So, but it's going, it's going pretty well. Everybody seems to like it.
'Cause I had a
And
boyfriend
everybody's
who
all
had-
excited about it up where he lives and
It's
stuff.
not really called a pit bull, they
So,
call it an American Staffordshire
Yeah,
Terriers.
Same thing.
He was really aggressive with other dogs.
Pushes the carbon through the,
He uses grain. He uses malt.
okay.
The only three things he uses is water, malt,
I'm just wondering how he gets the
yeast,
carbonate.
yeast.
I know, so, but then that means it's got to sit.
Yeah, right. That's what he does. Right.
So I know some of the bigger guys actually
Yeah, right.
now.
Just know.
No, we're not doing
And
it.
they just hate him.
We're very old
That
school.
just means you gotta have more.
All of the other ones?
Yeah. That's why he's saying I got to start making beer.
Right.
Right. We've got our kegerator. He bought a kegerator used. Has 6 taps on it, and we have he's got 4 taps on it. We've got 4, and it's refrigerated. It's really a beautiful piece of equipment that he got for a pretty good price.
Oh, he's loud.
And we've tested out the refrigeration aspect of it. Works perfectly. So yeah, we're kind of doing good.
Oh.
So, and we got our hot plates, which is the thing we're gonna.
Can we get back to business here?
Actually,
Well, yeah. Nice to have patience.
I just came.
And like his former partner used to represent us.
oh, yeah?
No, I'm just
Oh,
saying.
that's right. Yeah.
There's that kind of application.
Right. Gotcha.
It's on the second page of one. You got it.
How come I didn't see that?
That's why he's
We're
got.
missing one person here.
Yeah, Shepherd, I saw him just leave, so.
On the second page.
Well, I could swear him in and stretch it out.
Application. Environmental impact.
Oh, here he comes.
Okay.
I think I have it.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Arbor, raise your right hand for me.
Right on the cover.
Solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Ormond, for the record, you are both a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey and a professional planner, is that correct?
That's correct.
And also, there was reference to a previous application involving this subject property in approximately 2004, is that correct?
That's correct.
And were you the engineer and your firm the engineer of record in that application?
Yes, I was.
And did you testify before this board in 2004 and have some familiarity with the history of this application going back to 2004?
Yes, I did.
And you're
Okay.
still licensed?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I checked the emails just before he testified. Mr. Ardman, I have marked as an exhibit, I believe it is A5 up there, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and that basically is part of the plan set that we submitted in conjunction with this application, and you colored that set for the board, is that
That's
accurate?
correct.
And you sort of delineated the area where there are changes to the subject property. Can you, first of all, indicate what is located in the area that we are looking to renovate and improve at the present time?
Certainly, and just to, on the record, this is our dimension plan, SP2, that's been colored for the presentation, but as submitted to the board. Hamilton Street at the top, Matilda on the left side, north being up. The three existing buildings that were referred to on the corner is the main sanctuary building. What was described as a partial office is on the right side here to the east on Hamilton, and the area we have shown here on the south, on the corner of Matilda and Victor, we show the new building footprint, which is overlaid basically over the existing building footprint. So Peter, to your question, the dotted red line, which we have shown on here being the project area, because that is the limit of the area disturbance and change for this project. The parking area that you see here in the gray is as it is today, with the stalls delineated as you come in off of Victor Street on either side of the aisle. There's also an entrance off of Hamilton, and you come into the site, and then it's one way out through a drive to Matilda. That's between the two buildings that we described. So those are the existing 25 stalls that are on site presently. The rest that's existing on site, the playground that you see here is existing and mainly will remain unchanged. We're fixing the fence and fixing some drainage in that area, but that is largely unchanged. Again, the lot size here is approximately 0.82 acres. It's 180 by a 200-foot site, which is well over the minimum standard for the zone.
Could you just put that closer to your mouth?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
And what's, you said something is more than enough for the zone?
The lot size.
The lot size is more than enough for the, if it was being used in what type of a way? Because isn't there a requirement that a church be located on a 5-acre lot?
No.
No,
That requirement is if the church is in a residential zone. In different residential zones, certain residential zones, you have to be on twice the minimum lot area, or in other zones, it's triple. This happens to be in a commercial zone, and the minimum lot area is the same for commercial use. So the 10,000 square foot requirement would apply here.
Oh, okay, good.
So, again, for the record, the zone requirement is 10,000 square feet, and we have 35,782 square feet, correct?
That's correct. And again, the Hamilton Business District, the HBD district, does permit this as a conditional use.
Okay. Again, if you can go through the zone requirements and indicate, well, rather than go through all of them, are there any zone requirements that we do not comply with?
The only ones we do not comply with, is you're familiar in this district, instead of a setback, there's more of a build-to requirement. So for the existing building on Hamilton, which is not changing as part of this application, that variance was previously granted. It's 21.7 feet as existing will remain, where the requirement is 0 to 10 max. So that is
Excuse me, so then that building is set back too far?
That's correct. The
All right.
design intent was to have up on the street
Yeah.
to promote, you've been through the
Whatever, right.
commercial feel of the district.
So all the other criteria meet as far as the bulk requirements, as was brought up by Mr. Healy. The only other change that does generate an expansion of a previously granted variance is the parking by the 230 seat count. That in the sanctuary, it would be 77 stalls required. It was previously granted a variance for 25 on site. Again, the only reason for the change is to go along with the ADA, with the handicap stall update, to have the proper spacing on the stalls and the aisle between it. We lose one stall, so there'll be 24 stalls. So that'll create that variance condition.
So for the record, again, the 2004 approval did grant the variance for the parking to have the 25 spaces on site, is that correct?
That's correct. And while we're talking about that, I just might as well put it on the record. As you said, I was part of that application. It was ZBA 2004-0114. And in that application, the facts were similar. It was stated that this Matilda building was on a separate lot. It was purchased in 1994, but it was not until this 2004 that it was formally combined with the rest of the parcel and got its use variance at that time. So that is what granted the use variance and for the Matilda portion of the parcel. 1988 is when the original church, as was stated by the pastor, was purchased and used since that time. Also, in the resolution, it was discussed that there were 230 seats at that time, and there was the same 77 space requirement for the parking. And once again, at that time, there was an agreement with Levin Management for allowing parking spaces on that property. So it's been consistent through this 2004 application, and the use as cited in this ordinance, as I read it, my recollection from that application was that, and the testimony of the pastor is that that has been consistent through this time, the use, the number of people on the site.
So was the church built in 1988?
There was a structure here then, that the original front two buildings were purchased by the church at that time. And
converted?
I believe they might have actually been a separate church, but that, I wouldn't quote me on that one. There was
There's at least one person in back of you shaking your head yes, so I'll go with that.
Okay. So that in regard to the parking and the use has been similar through this time. And again, I'll get back to the site plan in a minute, but since parking has been a question, if you add up the 25 or 24 on-site spaces, 60 plus in the 11 lot, and then street parking, you can get to 100 stalls pretty quick, as was cited by the pastor. It has not become a problem over the years, and with this growth being basically static or not a large increase, and what you heard about a lot of people carpooling, especially the Rutgers students coming in a van or a big group, we have not seen any issues with parking on the site for all my discussions of these years with the church officials. So.
All right, jumping back to the site plan before we go into some additional planning testimony. The site plan, limit yourself, since we're really not changing anything other than the area surrounding the new building. Can you describe what we are changing at the corner of Victor and Matilda with the new building?
Yeah, so the building, as we show going in, and a large focus is the handicap accessibility. So we'll be putting in the ramp that we've worked together with the architect to come up the front face of the building here and into one main access. Along Matilda also, a sidewalk, public sidewalk, will be extended on that full width. Right now, there's pretty much just a beaten down path in front of the property in that area, and 2 street trees will be placed in front of the building as well. Basically, it'll be cleaned up. It's been with the older building in some disrepair over time. You can see the sidewalk connecting the area from the handicap parking spaces to the access ramp, and then the steps coming up to the main area of the building.
Does that sidewalk exist today, Mr. Ardman, or is that new?
That's new as well. People are now walking through the driveway to get to that entrance more than on a sidewalk where it's more appropriate for pedestrian access. As I stated, the playground will remain. As far as development, even though the footprint increases, we've adjusted the pavement area on site, so there's actually a slight reduction of pavement or impervious area on site, so there are no stormwater issues on the.
How did you do that?
I've been doing this a while. We cleaned up some of the green spaces, some areas that there was widened pavement that wasn't being used. It was just kind of non-designated overflow pavement area, but it wasn't sidewalk either. So as far as drainage, some of the drainage also spills right onto grade at this time, and it has caused just localized, drainage or icing issues. So we're piping all that now to the existing inlet. So that's a modest upgrade also of the drainage on site. As far as utility goes, there are utilities that feed the existing building. We're going to update those. There'll be a new sanitary connection to the existing line. There'll be new water connections. As the architect stated, there'll be a second connection for fire supplies, since the building will be sprinklered, and that will be a good upgrade for fire safety for the building. And that's pretty much the site layout for this property.
Is there any new lighting being proposed in and around the new structure?
The only lighting will be to replace basically what's existing on the doorways, to light those up for emergency. There'll be a security lights basically on the corners of the building only. That it gets the playground area a little bit, but that playground is for the tots, so they're not out at late hours anyway.
Okay. And there's no proposed change in any of the lighting in the parking lot or anywhere else on the subject property? Everything else is remaining the same?
That's correct. The adjoining properties, there are residential on Matilda and Victor, but on Hamilton, obviously, across is one retail, and next door, there's retail use as well.
Okay. And we are very briefly, there is no stormwater management being proposed other than the modest change that you're making to take care of some drainage issues, but we are not required to put in a detention basin or anything of that nature because we are not increasing the impervious coverage. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, the church is a permitted conditional use in the zone. We meet all of the zone requirements and all of the requirements for the conditional use standards as far as the proposed use, other than the parking requirement.
That's correct.
And can you render an opinion as to whether the board can grant the variance for the exchange of the old building to the new building, and whether the parking variance is in any way affected as a result of the enhancement of the building?
Certainly. As I described, there was an approval for the site on the 2004 application. The site has remained substantially in the same use since that time. You've heard it's operated as a church since '88. The number of seats and the number of congregants has remained over those 10 years virtually the same. So there's a good track record of the church in this area. They have good outreach to the neighboring groups, as Rutgers, as you've heard as well. So they're a good community neighbor. Since this is an existing site and been in operation, I think it's particularly well-suited to take one building down and replace another basically in kind. As stated, it's an inherently beneficial use. As far as the increase in size, as far as pure numbers, as we discussed, Mr. Shepard said, the pure math is a 2 times expansion. As you heard from the architect, a good bulk of that expansion is really providing enough room. We're squeezing 20 to 50 congregants in a room for, designed for many less. This will give the appropriate size in each room. There was much more room provided for health and safety in the building, stairways, elevators, proper ADA access, all that takes up space in the building.
Handicap bathrooms,
Exactly.
always wide enough.
All those ADA, handicap, are square footage in the building, which would net that area down. We also, as you heard from the architect, aren't trying to take credit for the basement that's being used. Maybe not exactly properly now, but that use is going on as a matter of reality on site. So the point
there being is that it's not in, even though the building increases, this is just wrapping that existing use into a legalized, formalized use on the building that'll be up to current code, and even with the increase of fire safety by providing a sprinkler, which the congregation is going to spend the money to, which isn't absolutely necessary by code. So with all those things, I believe it's going to be an enhancement of the property. I believe the architecture that you see beforehand with nice windows, the scale that you see broken up, it's not just a straight flat facade. I think that architectural design is an enhancement to the neighbors. As far as any potential negative impacts, and to show there's no substantial detriment, the hours are relatively limited for this site to what they always have been on the property. There'll be no increase in the hours. The noise or light issues have not been a problem over the time. And again, for the traffic, as we've said, we do not foresee a traffic increase. It's going to be the same patterns, the same people coming from the same directions. Similarly with parking, which I've discussed. So with all those issues, I believe there will be no negative impact to the site or the neighbors. As I said, the architecture is a positive. So overall, I do not see any negative impact on the zone plan for this HBD zone or to the neighborhood.
Okay, one last item. There are limited staff reports that were issued in conjunction with this application. We've sort of dealt with the staff report from Patty Elliott. The only other issue was a report from the police department, which quite frankly I just got a few minutes ago. I didn't even get that one, where there was a request for some bollards being installed between the parking spaces and the children's playground. Can you indicate to the board where the request is and what's there now?
Certainly. The parking is basically along the west side of the parking lot. This boxed area is the playground. The rest is green open space. Those will be the two handicap stalls. We can review that with police. There's basically, the main stretch, there's a planted buffer there, and right where the stalls are, there'll be the post with the handicap sign. So that should be enough for them. If they want that inside a bollard, we can increase that too.
Is that a new planted buffer? Because you didn't discuss landscaping at all.
Yeah, that's an existing one, actually. There's some existing street trees on Hamilton. We're planting two new ones in front of the building. So we've enhanced just a little bit of the landscaping, but there is some on site that we're keeping, so we're really keeping the existing condition.
You mentioned there's two handicap spots. Is that enough with today's requirements for the number of people that attend?
Yes, it is. Okay. Yep, it's two for 25, so we're at 24, so that's correct. It's the number on site. For the off site, those aren't counted in the calculation.
Mitch, is the sidewalk on Hamilton up to code?
I can take another look. There are no issues there. The county did not bring it up. Only the apron that they brought up, that was an issue. To be honest, I just drove by again today. Nothing jumped out at me as not, but we can take a look.
Well, just, Mitch, for the record, the county did ask us to replace not only the apron, but also the sidewalk on Hamilton.
The side, okay. I only remembered the apron, sorry about that. So it will be up to code if they've requested it.
Okay, and I was looking at the landscaping plan on the southwestern corner of the building where there's the stairwell and there's no windows in that area. Is there any way you can add some type of taller shrub in that area?
Like some foundation plantings that would grow up some?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
Any other questions from the board?
If I could, a few comments.
Go ahead.
Just in terms of the variances, I think that there is a buffer variance. the ordinance says for churches, you have to have, that, you've heard it before, the double staggered or the triple staggered. And it doesn't necessarily say, well, first of all, it's definitely, I don't see how it wouldn't be applicable to the easterly property line that adjoins the commercial site. And then the ordinance isn't really clear, frankly, whether it's required or not along the frontages. I think in this situation, whether variance is determined or required or not, I think it's logical that along Hamilton Street and along Matilda, you don't want a wall of landscaping that would not be appropriate to the streetscape. You want an appropriate building, and you want some ornamental landscaping that enhances the look of the site. So to the degree that technically a variance may be required along the street frontages, I would suggest that it would be appropriate as long as their applicant is proposing appropriate landscaping. With regard to the easterly property line, I think the applicant could certainly argue a hardship situation because it's an existing situation. They have less than 2 feet of room in that existing area to provide. They're not going to provide a triple staggered row of 8-foot evergreens in that area, and all there'd be screening would be a shopping center parking lot and building. So I don't even see the need. Really, that requirement is put in there to protect. Most of our churches are in residential zones. It's really intended to protect residential areas, and none of that really applies here. There is residential across the street on Victor. As in light of that, I mean, my recommendation would be, I think the applicant should look at providing some more street trees along Matilda. First of all, the Somerset red maple, I'm not sure that's, I think the growth form of that, I think it's going to be too wide for that area. It's probably going to grow into the right-of-way and into the building, so I think they need to look at something more columnar in shape. I think they could probably squeeze in a few more in that area. And I would also recommend that they look at the area between the existing building and Matilda, look to see if you can get some columnar form street trees in that area as well. And I'm sure the applicant would be agreeable to looking into that and seeing what they could provide there. Do you have a?
We could sit down with you, Mr. Healy, and look at that.
I think that's really the intent, and I think that's really that's frankly what would be the better solution here than anything that's technically required by the ordinance. And then as far as Victor, I don't think the need for screening is significant. When you look at sheet A5, the proposed Victor Street elevation, I think they're proposing a very attractive building. It's the height and the mass of it on Victor that's facing the adjoining or the residential property across Victor. Again, it's similar in scale and appearance to a house. Nonetheless, there's no landscaping proposed. So if you could look at something on that, I don't believe that's the area, Cheryl, that you were talking about. I think you were talking about the other side.
Yeah, Victor,
The steps are on the north side.
right, was less of a concern. It was just the stairwell area where there's no windows
Okay.
to dress up the facade.
Okay. All right. And then in addition to that, I'm recommending that they look at the Victor Street frontage and see what you can do in terms, because there's nothing proposed now. Some foundation plantings and/or some street trees to improve that street frontage.
We'll come up with a plan and submit it to you for your review, Mr. Healy.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, I'm opening it to the public. Any questions or comments? Okay. Is anybody in the public interested in making a comment about the application as a whole? Okay.
I will be very brief. You don't want me to be brief?
Go ahead.
As Mr. Ardman said, this church has been part of that Hamilton Street community for many years. It's a plus. The new building will be an enhancement to it. I think with some of the recommendations of Mr. Healy, it'll even, with the plantings and everything else, it'll even be a greater enhancement. And I think it will allow the church to remain a vibrant part of the community in the future. And really what we're doing is addressing substandard conditions and code violations. And the variances that we are seeking were really previously granted. I think from the testimony, this is not an application to expand the use, but to modernize the use, and I would respectfully request that the variances be granted. Thank you.
Do I have any discussion or motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that we grant the Chinese Christian Church in Somerset, Inc., the necessary variances for this application to allow them to build a new building on their existing site, subject to their complying with all of the requirements of the professional reports, and working with Mr. Healy to come up with a landscaping plan that is satisfactory to Mr. Healy and the town.
I would add that they also comply with, and this probably incorporates Mr. Healy, but Cheryl's comments about additional
Right.
landscaping in the front.
I accept that amendment.
I second.
Okay.
Raymond Betterbid,
Yes.
Laura Grauman,
Yes?
Donald Johnson,
Yes.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell,
Yes.
Joe Reese.
Yes.
Thank you.
Nice plan.
Now comes the
One more.
Yep.
Where is he going? I thought Pete was the attorney. Poor baby.
Yeah.
All right, the next application is CAM, CAAM Development Group, INC, ZBA 140005 is a hardship variance.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Catherine Kopp from the Law Office of Peter U. Lanford on behalf of the applicant, CAM Development. I will try to make this presentation as brief as possible so that you guys can get home. I believe we're last on the agenda tonight, right? The application tonight is for the construction of a single-family, two-story home on William Street. And as my client will testify, as my client will testify, it is for the construction of a two-story single-family residence on the property. My first witness that I'd like to call is Michael Abramovitz.
Okay, sir, if you raise your right hand for me, you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Okay, it's definitely not on, right?
No. It's not on.
I do.
Okay, can you spell your last name just so I have it?
Abramowitz.
Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Abramovitz, can you tell the board your position with CAM Development Group?
I am the president of CAM Development.
Okay, and...
Could you speak up a little bit?
Oh, okay.
Good.
I'm not used to talking in the microphone.
Right into it, just like a rock star.
Okay.
Okay, and prior to submitting the application, were notices sent to the adjacent neighbors asking if they were willing to purchase your lots at fair market value?
Yes.
Okay, and did either of your neighbors make a legitimate offer to purchase either of the lots?
No.
Okay, are you proposing to build a two-story, single-family home on the lot?
Yes.
Time out, did you offer to sell it?
Did I offer to,
To sell the lot, to,
we,
it's a buy-sell, so the question is, did you also offer to sell the property to adjoining property owners?
we gave them the opportunity to buy the property.
Okay.
And do you want to mark those letters?
Sure. Bear with me. Okay, I can mark the letters to Robert Tarullo and John F. Cave as applicants exhibit number 1.
Okay.
And letter to Stephen Stankovich and Jane Norris as applicants exhibit number 2. Both letters dated February 20th, 2013, if the board would like.
You could just give it to me and I'll take care of it. Okay, thanks.
Okay, and Mr. Abramovitz, can you describe the exterior of the proposed house?
The exterior of the home is going to be mostly maintenance-free siding. As you can see by the exhibit on the easel.
A3.
A3.
And A3 is what?
That is it's the same home with 2 different color sidings proposed, either variant.
That is the home that you're going to build. I'm over here.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And you have no objection to whatever variance that is proposed to include a requirement that that particular house in appearance be built on the property?
No.
No objection?
No objection.
Okay, good.
Okay, and
Difference between the, I'm sorry, between
One,
those two?
the one on the left is a light gray, and the one on the right is off-white
Off?
bone color. I know it doesn't look that much.
It's very
different.
subtle.
Yes.
It looks to me like the only difference is that the tree is on the different side of the lawn. All right, go ahead.
okay, and the house as proposed contains 3 bedrooms, correct?
Correct.
Are you proposing a basement for the house?
I'm not proposing a basement at the present time. I plan on building it on a slab, but given the ground conditions, if need be, to get down to virgin soil, if I'm forced to dig down 7 to 8 feet, I would like the option to be able to put a basement in.
Okay, and you're proposing an attic for storage purposes only, correct?
For storage and for the utilities.
Okay.
Just so we're clear, the basement that you have indicated may or may not be, would it be for storage or
No,
living?
yes,
Would
just for
have-
storage, and if there is a basement, the utilities would probably go in the basement instead of in the attic.
Okay.
But it would not be for any living?
No.
Okay, and in your opinion, will the appearance of the house work with the existing homes in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay, and how far back from the property line were you originally proposing to construct the house?
I was originally proposing to put the house 25 feet setback as per the zoning, but with direction from the Historical Society, they had asked me to move the house forward to be more in line with the rest of the homes on the block.
And you're willing to comply with this request?
Yes.
Okay. And the house as currently designed has a one-car attached garage, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you're planning also to construct a driveway?
At the present time, I plan on leaving the driveway gravel driveway.
Okay, and how many cars will be able to park on the paved drive as proposed?
On the gravel drive, there'll be room for 1 car.
Okay. And in Mr. Healy's report, he had raised the issue as far as the gravel drive that the neighbor is currently using. How do you plan to address that issue?
I had a discussion with the neighbor to the left. At the present time, they have a tenant on the right side of the house because it's a two-family home that is handicapped, and it's easier for her to park on the right side of the existing home, which is now on my property. We agreed that there will be an arrangement worked out between myself, the future homeowner, the landlord, and the tenant there now, that we will provide parking for her on our property, so she can still maintain ease of access into the home.
Okay.
I assume that that would just be limited to that particular situation, that whatever the agreement is, it would cease to exist once that tenant was no longer there.
Correct.
Okay, and how do you plan to address the encroaching planter?
Again, I discussed with the neighbor beforehand. We discussed the fact not only is the planter encroaching on the property, but there's the possibility that there is the sanitary sewer lateral from the home. The two homes are coming down the side of the house, which again is encroaching on the property. So we're willing to put a 5-foot easement in, utility easement, so if work needs to be done on the sanitary line running to the existing home, that they have access to it.
Okay, and the size of the easement, the exact size of the easement would be based on the exact location of the sanitary sewer line, correct?
Right.
That
Okay.
wouldn't interfere with the construction of, these encroachments would not interfere with the construction of your,
It shouldn't.
Why, if this lot wasn't owned by them, why was all this stuff done on your lot prior to you owning it? Who gave them permission to do that?
If I may, from what I understand in conversation with the owners of the neighboring property, the sanitary sewer line was in existence like that when they purchased the property. So we don't really know why it was constructed and approved the way that it was, but, you know, from what we understand, it is an existing, we learned tonight that it is in existence, and so we're trying to work with the neighbors in order to allow them access to their sanitary sewer line, you know, in the event that there is an emergency and something, they need to have it repaired or something. And as far as the sump pump that is encroaching on your property, have you spoken to the neighbors about that?
I did, and he indicated to me that he will redirect the sump pump to a different location.
Okay. And with regard to the neighbor on the right, the property owned by Mr. Cave and Mr. Tarullo, you had discussions with them regarding plantings between the two properties in order to create a buffer, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you agreed that you would look into installing potentially some trees or tall shrubbery between the two houses in order to create a barrier and afford the neighbor's privacy?
Yes.
Okay, I have no further questions for this witness.
any questions from the board? Okay, I'm going to open this up to the public. Any questions from the public? This is the time to ask questions, not comments, okay?
You'll have a chance to make comments at the end.
Okay, how about you get up?
Got to get up at the microphone.
It was stated earlier.
What's your name, please?
Robert Tarullo.
And
own the
you-
property at 36 William Street.
Okay.
They stated earlier that we were approached to purchase the property, and we were never approached to purchase the property.
Did you get a certified letter?
No, we didn't receive anything.
Could you check that one?
To
I thought it
purchase
was.
the property, we did not receive a certified letter to purchase it. We received a certified letter about this meeting.
Okay, hold on.
I'll show you, I mean,
No, was it sent?
So here's my question, if you, assuming for a second that you did not receive it, are you interested in purchasing the property?
We'd have to have a discussion. I don't know at this particular time. I'd have to know the price and, I'd have to discuss it with my partner.
Because it would be at a fair market value, you know that.
Well, okay, let me ask you a question. A fair market value of the property or a fair market value of the building lot?
The fair market value of the lot as if they have approval to build a house on it. So in other words, it's full price.
It's full price as far as...
As if you can build a house.
A building lot.
Yeah,
It's a buildable lot,
that's
yes.
correct.
So that's telling me that it's going to be approved as a building lot.
No.
No.
Basically, what that ensures is that you don't buy it as if it's not and then come before us and try to build a house on it and get all the value out of it. So the law assumes they get the value out of it. That has nothing to do with the board's actions. That's assumed now, if you wanted to buy it.
Okay, well, you're making an assumption, but right now, it is not a buildable lot.
I'm just trying to tell you what the law says. If you want to buy it, you have to buy it assuming it has the value of a buildable lot. That's not the board saying it, it's not me saying it, it's the law.
Well, I have to know what the value is as far as what it is as a buildable lot.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if they have a number in mind. We can obviously, this is more for the board, but we can either adjourn it to have them talk about it or condition any approval, if there was to be an approval, upon them doing it after the fact, if they obviously can agree to it, that there is no application.
I would prefer to adjourn it so that there's,
Do you have a ballpark? Do you know? Did you have a number?
In March 2013, I can submit as applicant's exhibit number 4,
There's nothing.
a letter prepared by Century 21 Warden Green, which states the valued lot from $65,000 to $70,000. But again, this is over a year old. I don't know if the value would be the same, if it, or if it would have changed at all. But in March 2013, it was between $65,000 and $70,000.
Assuming that ballpark, is that something that would interest you?
Like I said, at this time, I have to discuss it with my partner. I couldn't answer that question. Do we have a minute?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Was this second?
Is this house already sold, Mr. Abramowitz?
No, it's not.
Is there a contract on it, or?
No.
So this is a speculative venture?
Yes, I wasn't.
It's on spec.
It's on spec now because obviously wasn't until I received a variance, or if I receive a variance, I wasn't going to market a home.
If I may, I can,
Pat, was there a letter sent out?
Well, the letter was sent out. It's hard for me to tell if they actually signed for it on this.
if I may, I can further clarify, flipping through my file.
Yeah.
I have located the original envelope.
So it wasn't picked up or?
It wasn't picked up,
Okay.
but it was sent.
Well, they have notice here. They're here now, so we can get over this hurdle one way or the other.
Okay, why don't we move forward with any other comments or, well, any other questions at this point?
I have a question.
Yes.
Could you clarify the parking arrangement with the neighbor and where exactly she would park? and how that would fit in with your proposed driveway?
When I call my engineer/planner, John Hansen, he's going to go over that in detail.
Okay.
As it stands right now, no, we're not interested in purchasing.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any other questions of this witness? Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions of this witness? Okay, moving right along.
Okay, for my second witness, I'd like to call John Hansen.
Okay. Solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth? And
His name is John Hansen, H-A-N.
Got to talk right into it.
Hansen, with Ferrero Engineering, 180 Main Street, Chester, New Jersey.
Okay, can you please give the board the benefit of your educational and professional background?
Sure, I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Virginia Tech. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I'm also a licensed planner. I've been doing this for 21 years. I've been before approximately 80 different boards in New Jersey, and I represent 10 different boards as their expert.
I think we can accept your credentials.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and can you describe the site as it currently exists?
Sure. Let me mark this. What number are we up to?
5.
This is an aerial view of the surrounding area of East Millstone. It's at 1 inch equals 50 feet, and it's a 2012 aerial photo of the site. Just to kind of get you situated here, the subject 2 lots are shown in yellow. We've got Market Street running to the west or the left of the property, Elm Street on the bottom, the East Millstone Methodist Church is in this location, the Sunrise Creek Deli over here. We've got the Delaware and Raritan Canal here on the left. That's approximately 350 feet away. The property is currently vacant. It consists of 2 lots. The total square footage is 5,000 square feet. There's 50 feet of frontage. It fronts on William Street. The property has 10 trees on it currently. And as I said, the total area is 5,000 square feet. It's consistent with the lots in the zone. To the top of the property is a single-family home adjacent to the north that has 6,100 square feet, so that's undersized in the zone as well. To the south has 6,950 feet plus or minus. That's undersized in the zone as well, and that's a multi-family home. Across the street, we've got some lots that are actually a little bit smaller than that. The 2 properties directly across the street are 3,750 square feet. They each contain a single-family home as well. There's also non-conforming front yard and side yard setbacks with those. So the neighborhood is what I would call an eclectic neighborhood. It's got a lot of different architectural interests in it, different uses, and different styles. All the properties are served by public utilities. There's public water, public sewer, electric is overhead. And parking is prevalent on the street. So what we're proposing to do is, and I'm going to show you the plan that we currently have on file. This is the one that was submitted with the application. Would you like me to mark this, or is this okay?
Mark it as A6.
Okay, it is included in the application.
You don't have to if
It
it's,
doesn't
if
have to
it,
be marked if it's been submitted.
Okay, and so what you see here is the property, the subject property. We have the adjacent properties on each side. What we're showing shaded here is the proposed dwelling. It'd be a single-family home, a 3-bedroom home served by public utilities. The footprint is 996 square feet, and it conforms with the R10 standards. So no bulk variances would be required, other than obviously the lot area and the lot frontage, in accordance with the R10 zone. So this is what we submitted. We're proposing a 1-car garage driveway to extend from William Street, public utilities, to be graded in a way not to have any adverse impacts with stormwater management, runoff to any of the adjoining properties. We're designing a dry well system that'll be an underground system that will collect and store runoff and infiltrate it into the
Can
ground.
I interrupt you just for a second relative to the parking? And I think Cheryl was addressing this. How is the neighbors' parking going to impact your parking plan?
Well, the good news is it won't. What I'm going to show here, I will have to mark because you haven't seen this yet. So let's mark this A6.
How long's the driveway?
Driveway is approximately, on the existing plan, it's approximately 35, 40 feet.
Okay, all right.
Okay. What I'm going to mark as A6. It's titled Exhibit, was prepared by myself, and it's dated today, the 17th. What we're showing here is the structure, the proposed structure, moved closer to the road by 10 feet. And basically what we've done here is we've taken the recommendation from the historic preservation to move it up closer. It does require a front yard setback variance, but it's really more in keeping with the neighborhood because the existing homes on the lot adjacent to the south and adjacent to the north also do not meet the normal setback requirement of 25 feet. The property, Lot 9 to the south, is 9.5 feet from the right-of-way, and the property to the north is 10.6 feet from the right-of-way. So we're going to be a little bit farther than them. It'll still provide a house that has adequate light, air, and open space to the surroundings. It'll still provide parking in front of the garage, and then you'll also have the garage space. So we'll still have enough parking for 2 cars.
And so then the sidewalk now is going to be, I guess, about 14 feet?
That's correct.
Okay, and, okay, good, all right.
And so, to address the questions that was brought up before, we met with the neighbors prior to the meeting, and what we will do is allow the adjacent homeowners to have a gravel driveway here for the parking of a vehicle to serve the tenant on Lot 9. That gravel area will increase the lot coverage by approximately 100 square feet. So we would either be asking for an increase in coverage to accommodate them to 32%, where 30% is required, or for that coverage not to be considered part of it. I think the variance situation would be appropriate in this case. But we're also allowing the easement to incorporate their sewer line that is currently on our property. So we're willing to work with the neighbor there. There's also a request, some of these stones that were put in the property in the back here were apparently put by the neighbors there to enhance the property at one time. So we've offered that they can certainly take their stones and take them back. We also have a tree planting replacement requirement, and so what we'd like to do at the neighbor's request is to use those tree plantings that are required and put those along the property lines, both to the north and the south, to really create a nice visual privacy buffer between the rear yards of these structures. We are asking for a waiver to not provide curb and sidewalk, which is required. I've been out to this site, and I've been pretty much this entire Millstone area and looked at what's available with curb and sidewalk. There are just spotty sections of curb and sidewalk, nothing that connects. And in my opinion, as a planner, this really wouldn't be warranted here. It would be really a sidewalk to nowhere.
Do you have a view on that, Mark?
No, I mean, I think if you look at page 6 of my report, it gives you, actually both page 5 and 6, it gives you the street view of William Street. I mean, that's the existing condition right now, no curbs or sidewalks. I think if anything, it would actually look out of place.
Yeah, and I agree.
And it's never going to connect to anything since it's a developed neighborhood.
Did you bring copies of your revised plan for the board?
The exhibit here, this is just A6. This shows the new location of the home.
Okay, can you pass that around, I guess?
Sure.
Did you sketch out the 100 square foot area for the neighbor?
I didn't because we just met with him tonight.
Okay.
So, I can show you generally where it's going to be. For the record, it would be the south corner.
Do you want to sketch it out in hand?
Yeah, you might want to, because I'm not sure how a car can fit in 100 square feet.
Well,
So the 100 square feet is only the part that's on the lot.
yeah, the proposed driveway presumes a car hanging out into the right-of-way
Well,
as well.
yeah, and that's something the board may want to discuss. I mean, I think that the Historic Commission's recommendation, which is absolutely a valid one, of having the house be the similar setback in the, to the neighborhood makes sense, but then you also have, generally you try to have the way that this site is set up, you have you have to have some of the driveway in front of the building. And a car, standard parking space is 18 feet. So normally that would be what we would be working on. That would mean the house would probably be at least 20 feet setback. So I don't know if we want to necessarily
Well,
design
can it be
it.
an adjustment to, how much are we talking about?
You have from the front of the home, the garage face, to the edge of the pavement, 22 feet.
What we may want to do too is, there's an existing condition. And the existing condition is what's the distance from the front property line to the railroad tie that forms the back of the existing parking area?
That's 15 feet,
Okay, and what's the proposed plan now?
15.1.
15.1 would be the proposed parking area?
Our proposed front face of the garage, front face of the home is consistent with the railroad tie location now.
Okay. So, and in your opinion, in that situation with the house right at that 15, a car would be able to get out of the right-of-way to the same degree they can now?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the car would basically pull right up to the garage door, basically?
Yeah, and it's really consistent with the other properties all along William Street, especially on this block. They all have relatively close building proximity to the right-of-way, short driveways, and they're really all hanging out in there. From a safety standpoint, I really see no issue because William Street is not a heavily traveled road.
Yeah, and I think at a minimum, I would recommend we at least try to keep that existing line and not have it stick out even further. So what I'm hearing is that they're going to basically balancing the Historic Commission's recommendation to have it closer to the street while not making that situation worse.
Correct.
If you look at page 6 of Mr. Healy's report, there is a car in a driveway across the street from the site, which actually kind of hangs out a little bit into the street, so.
And then if you compare that on the left side of the site, you can actually see the parking area that we're talking about. And there's a car parked there.
Yep.
So, and that car fits.
Yeah.
Whereas across the street, it's an older neighborhood, it wasn't built in, with zoning, which is good and bad. But the problem is you have a large car and it's sticking out about 5 or 7 feet into the right-of-way.
Yeah.
So that's really all I have under direct testimony as far as the engineering goes. I can move into the planning testimony unless you have some questions.
Did you sketch the area in of the driveway?
Yeah, this area here,
Okay, so how would that be demarcated?
it would be basically taped off of the house and just spray painted on the ground, and then it would be constructed of gravel.
With railroad tie or just gravel?
Gravel.
Well, I think just gravel.
Okay.
Any other questions before I move to the planning arguments?
No, but if you, I have a planning question that I've been waiting for, so maybe you could start with that.
Okay.
One of the things in Mr. Healy's report that he talks about is the concern that the house that you're planning to build doesn't overwhelm the surrounding houses. I can't find a specific language right now because I was flipping back and forth. But he said that there should also be some examples of the other houses and how that all fits together. Do you have anything that we
Yeah.
can work with that?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's actually, it's two different comments. I mean, I think what you're talking about is where I ask for some data, it's really the lot size and the frontage, and whether that's compatible, whether the proposed lot size of 5,000 square feet and the lot frontage of 50 is compatible with that existing in the neighborhood.
Oh, okay, so it's not the houses really, it's the...
Well, I make a separate comment, which is, and I've made this on other applications where we've had lot area variances where the building coverage requirement is 20%. And again, an applicant is coming in and they're at 19.9%.
Yeah.
You know, so they're building right up to the maximum.
Yeah.
And we know what's going to happen. Homeowner's going to move in, they want to put a 10 by 10 storage shed or put up some type of recreation building, and they're coming right back to the board.
So
and
generally, what we do in that instance is require that any sale put a purchaser on notice of this, yes?
You could do that. You could discuss with the applicant whether they can make the building smaller.
Well, let me provide some testimony. I kind of touched on it already, but A5, shows not only the aerial view and shows our subject lots in yellow, but if you can see here, I know you're far away, but the lot lines are also drawn in with respect to the homes where the lots are located. So what this shows you is that when you combine these two lots in yellow, they're very consistent to the other sizes of the properties in the zone. And especially the ones across the street, they're actually larger. This home would be built on a larger lot than what exists now. Even these larger lots behind that front on Market Street are exactly 10,000 square feet, which is what the zone requires. So even if we were able to purchase some property, by purchasing the adjacent property would make their lot non-conforming. So really what we have here is a classic hardship case. You have what you have these two lots, and we've designed a structure that's consistent in mass and size with the adjacent structures and really is positioned appropriately on the property. So, it really will present itself as best as you can and provide a functional, modern home that's functions safe for the user.
Okay, and just to clarify for the board, other than the total lot area, but as far as the front yard, with the house originally where it was proposed to be constructed, as far as the front yard setback, the side yard setbacks, the house at its currently proposed size met all of the bulk variances, correct?
That's correct. We did not need any relief for the home as it was currently located and submitted to the board. It is certainly, in my opinion, and the historic preservation people obviously agree, that moving it up makes more sense.
And so what would the variance be then?
It's a front yard setback variance, and the difference is from 25, which is required in the zone, to 15.1.
15, okay.
So what we really have here is we have a C1 case. The positive and the negative criteria have to be met for that. And that deals with the bulk standards of the area of the lot and the frontage of the lot. We have not only consistent lot areas, but consistent frontages. And I think that the hardship's been met through the positive criteria by asking to buy or sell the property. From a C2 perspective, I think the board can feel comfortable granting the front yard setback. And under the C2 criteria, the positive criteria is met if you are forwarding purposes, at least one purpose of the municipal land use law. And in this case, I think by pushing the house forward, you're really forwarding two purposes. Purpose I is desirable visual environment, and by not having this offset and having it consistent with the streetscape, that purpose is forwarded. And then purpose C talks about adequate light, air, and open space. And again, this configuration at 15.1 feet off the right-of-way really provides adequate side areas, an adequate rear yard for the user, and an appropriate front yard to be consistent with the streetscape.
Okay, and just another follow-up question really quickly regarding the impervious coverage of the property. If the house is moved forward 10 feet, the driveway would therefore be reduced by 10 feet, and that would automatically reduce the impervious coverage, correct?
Well, right, again, we're not, we have a situation where we don't need an impervious coverage relief. But I think since we are proposing to give this gravel driveway to the neighbor next door, I think it certainly could be granted by the board that a small coverage variance be granted in order to allow a patio and, a small shed or something in the rear. Because this gravel area that we're talking about to serve this person will certainly go away at some time. And when that does, it would be a conforming coverage situation.
Is gravel is considered impervious coverage?
For zoning purposes, yes.
So, you got a number?
32%. 30% is allowed.
Okay.
So, let me just wrap up the negative criteria. As I'm sure you've heard many times, the negative criteria needs to be established in order for you to grant the application. It's a three-pronged test. You need to show that there's no substantial detriment to the zone plan, no substantial detriment to the zoning ordinance, and no substantial detriment to the public good. I think by moving this home up to where it is, it'll actually enhance the streetscape as opposed to what would be permitted under a non-variance conditions. As far as the zone plan and the zoning ordinance goes, I see that there's no substantial detriment, only minor detriments. And I think it's important to point out that there are some goals of the master plan that would be advanced. I'm sorry, that this would be consistent with. And upon review of your master plan, one of the goals is to maintain the diversity of housing, but encourage infill and stabilization of current residential areas rather than continuing sprawl patterns of development. That goal is maintained. And then lastly, maintain the character of the existing villages of Kingston, Griggstown, Franklin Park, Middlebush, and East Millstone, develop special design standards for villages, and discourage the intrusion of incompatible uses. So I'd argue that this is a compatible use. It's been designed as such. And working with the Historic Preservation Commission really enhances the design standard for the village. So I don't have anything else. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I do have, can you, going back to the engineering side of all of this, can you describe the stormwater management plan that we have in place?
Sure. The stormwater management plan is a series of dry wells. They're each 10 by 10 in footprint area, 6 foot deep. There'd be typical dry well, which we have filter fabric in the excavation, 2.5-inch clean stone, and a concrete cylindrical tank with holes in it. So what happens is the water will go in there during a large storm event. The water will infiltrate into the ground, and then if you have a significant storm event, it will bubble out at the top of the dry well. It's really the most effective means of stormwater management for a development like this because it captures volume and rate of runoff.
Okay, and going back to the trees, will this application, as proposed, require a waiver with regard to the trees?
Well, as I have the trees calculated, if we move the home up into a location that we show in our latest plan, we're actually able to save a large tree. And that's a 30-inch tree in the rear here. So that really cuts, as I calculated down, into 14 replacement trees. We're proposing to do 4 on each side. Those would be evergreen to buffer the neighbors. And then we're requesting a waiver for 6 of the remaining 14.
Okay, and have you reviewed the staff reports?
I have.
Okay, and can we comply with all of the requests and/or requirements of the staff reports?
Yeah, there's only one comment, and it has to do with the engineering report. There was a comment about dedicating a 5-foot fee dedication in right-of-way here. And in my opinion, as a planner and an engineer, I can tell you that William Street be doubtful that that's going to be expanded. And I think by doing that dedication is really going to have a jog in the right-of-way and really an unnecessary jog, and then further the variance for the front yard setback. So if the board is certainly concerned about that and they want us to address it, instead of a fee dedication, we could do a 5-foot easement for road purposes in the future, if they feel that's necessary.
Just to clarify what this comment is about, different streets within the township have different classifications, and associated with that classifications, there are different standard rights-of-way width. This is a residential street. The standard right-of-way width for that is 50 feet. So the reviewing engineer is basically kind of obligated to point that out and say, I want the full 50-foot width. This is an older street. The right-of-way happens to be 40 feet in width, or is it 45?
40.
And they're, okay, so it's 40, so they're asking for the 5 feet on the applicant's side. And then the engineer and planner is basically saying, this is an existing street. It's not going to get widened at any time. So they're asking for relief from that.
Yeah, you really couldn't widen the street because, the porch of the neighbor's home next door is only 4 feet from the right-of-way.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not practical.
realistically, the street is the width it's going to be. And if the township was to ever, for whatever reason, then they're acquiring 5 feet on either side going down the width of William Street. I can't imagine that ever happening or think of a reason why that would happen, to tell you the truth. But I think the engineers, it is a standard, so they're obligated to bring that to your attention.
So we're asking for a waiver.
Okay, and we're also asking for, as far as the Mr. Healy's report, we're okay with complying with all of the requests and/or requirements except for reducing the size of the house. And again, as you said, we're asking for a waiver for 6 of the trees that would be required per the calculations, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you've reviewed the report from the DRCC?
I did.
And we can comply with their requirements as well, correct?
We will.
Okay.
But you still have to go to them and get their approval.
Yeah, as a condition of any approval you
Yeah.
may give, we'll
Right.
certainly go there. Yep.
Okay, I have no further questions for this witness.
Board?
And the reason you want a waiver for 6 trees?
Well, to be honest with you, by the time you build the driveway, build the house, grade the property with the proper swales to get water away from it, construct the stormwater management system in this location, you don't have any other spot to put trees and still have a reasonable backyard.
Sure you do.
Well, yeah, and first of all.
Sure you do.
First of all, the way the ordinance is written, and actually in my report, I don't think I mentioned any numbers, but it's, the way, it's not the zoning ordinance, it's another separate ordinance. And the way the ordinance is written is, it basically says, provided on site, or if you can't, there's a payment in lieu provision. So I think what you're saying is you're going to provide as many as you can on site, and to the extent that you can't, then you'll do the payment in lieu. I don't think the board, frankly, has the jurisdiction to waive that. It's
Okay.
not a zoning ordinance, it's
My
something
client's
separate.
nodding yes anyway, so I believe that we'll do that.
Yeah. And then street trees, I assume you're going to provide some
Well,
number of street trees?
We weren't going to provide street trees. If you look back at the photo in the end of your report, you take a look at it, the proximity of the homes, as close as they are to the street, in my opinion, that's why you don't see street trees there now, because the trees will basically grow up and the branches are going to go into the windows of the homes. It's going to be kind of a maintenance nightmare. So what I would propose, instead of the street trees, is really some lower plantings. Talk to my client about putting some shrubs in the front here, consistent with what else is on the street. And we think that would be really a better enhancement. Instead of hiding the home, you just buffer the home and make it look nice from the
I have no objection to that. And then one more question. You had mentioned before, you were asking for provision for impervious coverage up to 32% to allow for the parking for the neighbor, as well as the possibility of adding a patio in the back for the future homeowner. as well as some provision for maybe a storage shed or something.
Correct.
The storage shed will also count towards the building coverage. Based on the coverage that you're proposing with the storage shed, you're probably talking about a 22% building coverage. So are you asking for the variance for that as well?
Well, if the board is inclined and feels that that's consistent, I think it's consistent with the neighborhood, but if the board's not, if we get a feeling that's not something that you consider, then we won't ask for it.
Does the board have a view?
I think that's, my view is that neither of those things are a problem. I have some interesting questions, though, or questions that are interesting to me that I would like some advice from our attorney on.
Okay, Bob?
There are two things that he has talked about here. One of them is an easement for a sewer line, and the other one is the gravel driveway. They don't seem to have any place in any kind of a resolution that we prepare tonight. That's really between him and his neighbors, is it not?
Certainly, it is between him and his neighbors. You can put into the resolution the requirement that they enter into those easements. Why don't we table that just slightly so that we can hear from the neighbors if they're here
Yeah,
to just
okay.
make sure that they're in
Yeah.
accord with that and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I'm going to open this up both to questions for the engineer planner and also comments, because we're coming to the end of the night. So anyone who has a comment needs to be sworn in, which I think that's you, sir, yes?
Steve Stankovich, 51
Is that mic working?
Okay, sir, if you'll raise your right hand, I'm going to swear you in. You solemnly swear affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And your name again?
Steve Stankovich, 51 Livingston Avenue, East Millstone. I own 44 William Street, and I have a tenant that's handicapped, and, you know, we've been having those driveways there they must have been there for 50 years, and, you know, it's a hardship for us, too. And I do have my sewer line that's about 3 to 4 feet off the side of the house that runs up and then into underneath the deck. And I'm just hoping that, you know, that they'll give me the easements, and I'd be happy with that.
And do you I hear from the applicant that's the case, although the question, and I raised this, that are you looking for a permanent parking easement or just simply something to?
Just as long as
accommodate-
the tenant that's in there is in
Okay.
there.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
The easement for the sewer will be forever.
Yes. Hope so.
Thank you.
Mike is now
It's working now.
Use both.
Okay, sir, if you'll raise your right hand, you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And your name and address for the record.
John Cave, 20 Talmadge Ave in Bound Brook. I own the house, 36 William Street. Comment is that it's going to be sad to see the little green space go that's been there for so many years. That being said, though, my concern, I guess, will suppose would be the...
Would you move up to the... yeah.
My concern would be the creating some sort of a like landscape buffer along the side of the house, or it looks like the utilities might wind up being like the air conditioning unit, the compressor, and to kind of just soften the hardscape at least at eye level with some sort of like shrubbery of some sort that might fill out somewhat so that it would create that softening effect along that side of the house there and help maybe reduce the noise of the air conditioning unit that would most likely be placed in that corner of the house.
Isn't that something that you?
Yes, my
said you
client,
were going to do?
my client
Yeah.
did agree to do it.
Just getting this on the record, I
Okay.
suppose. And then the only other thing is that it currently is going to be built on a slab, but in the event that the house is going to need a full basement, I have a little concern about there's a flowering cherry tree that's relatively close to where I guess some significant digging would have to take place if they were going to put in a full basement. And I'm just kind of worried about the tree being damaged. It is a mature tree or whatever. So that, that's about it, I guess. Just a concern with what's that? Yeah, it would be nice if it didn't have to get trimmed, actually, because it's a magnificent-looking tree in the spring. That's it. That's all.
Any other questions and comments?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Raise your right hand and solemnly swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I solemnly swear to tell the truth and the whole truth.
Okay. And your name, sir?
My name is Robert Mettler. I live at 2303 Amwell Road in East Millstone, New Jersey. I've worn a number of hats, but tonight I'm appearing, I guess, as the Township historian. And may I have your permission to hand out a copy of a map?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
It's actually your permission. There's no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
The map that I have given you was created by a company called Sanborn in Paris, which at the end of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century did maps primarily for the fire insurance industry. And so their maps tended to be around industries, in this case, the Somerset Distilling Company at that time, which was Gaff Flashman and Company, where they made Flashman's gin and Flashman's yeast. And you will notice that there were, at that time, actually 7 buildings on the south side, or I should say on the west side of William Street, whereas today there are 3. The only building that's on this map that still exists is the second building from Elm Street, which is the 2-family house that's been referred to. The building on the corner was actually the oldest building. That was a school that was built in 1845. But at any rate, the purpose of handing out the map is to show that there were at least one house, if not 2, on the property which is going to be developed. And so my request is this, that as the house is being built, some record be made of what is found. Now, if it's built on a slab, probably not very much of the land will be disturbed. But if there is to be a basement, then they're likely to run into an old basement, or the basement of these houses that existed. And these houses were principally in this area where the factory workers lived and the distillery workers lived. So they would be they were good examples of 19th century mill housing, factory housing. There's the off chance that something interesting might be found, but at least if an old basement is found, it would be nice to have a photographic record. And so I would request that the board consider making that a condition of the approval, if that's okay. Thank you.
Have you spoken to them about this?
I've spoken to their attorney, and she's
got a position?
Yes, my client is willing to notify Mr. Mettler so that he or any other member of the Franklin Township Historic Commission can be present when they are doing the excavation, if something is found while they're excavating for the slab or, if necessary, basement. They are willing to allow the Township Historic Commission to come in, take the pictures that they need to take, as long as it doesn't cause, any undue delay, as long as this can be dealt with promptly, and it is limited to the Township Historic Commission members, coming in and taking pictures, we have no issue with that.
Is that satisfactory for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Sir, if you raise your right hand for me, solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth.
I do.
Okay, your name and then for the record.
Robert Tarullo. I own 36 William Street, East Millstone. Going back to their comment as far as when they're building the house, the option to put in a full basement, that they want the option to make that decision themselves. Is that going to happen, or are they going to have to go back to the building department and get a proper permit and all that?
Well, whatever they
Or
build.
would they have to come back to this board and get permission?
No, this is not a board issue, but whatever ordinances they need or codes they need to meet in terms of building code, absolutely, they would have to get the appropriate.
Okay, so they wouldn't make that decision themselves. They'd have to get it approved by the township.
They absolutely have to get the necessary approvals, necessary permits from the township per code, but it's not a variance issue with this board.
See, that we just deal with zoning issues here.
Right.
This is if-
All right, I was just
Any,
going back to their comment about their option to.
And
do
that
the base.
option would be reviewed by the building construction code
Okay.
official.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Okay,
Hi.
raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes,
And your name, please?
Jennifer Norris,
And your address?
51 Livingston Avenue, East Millstone. I'm Stephen's wife, and we own 44 William Street. I just wanted to clear up some information about the property and the reason that the parking and the sewer line are on the adjacent lot. As far as I understand, all of those lots at one point were owned by the Lorry Rubber Factory and probably also by the Fleischmann Corporation at the late, the turn of the last century. Excuse me. When we purchased the home about 20 years ago from Mr. Jim Fair, there were parking lots existing that had been there for, I don't know, maybe since the 1970s. And whenever the sewer line went in, it's very possible that Mr. Laurie still owned that property, and he had owned the property adjacent 44 Williams that was sold to the Fair family. And I believe the Fair family lived in that house since 1959. So they were there for quite a long time. And, they may have had an agreement with Mr. Laurie. That's
Well,
how.
however that all happened.
Yeah.
It's a condition that we just simply have to deal with now.
Right, right. But, I just wanted to let everyone know that it was existing for many, many years before we owned the home.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I think we've heard from everybody out there. Okay.
I have one more.
Yes.
I would just like to ask the engineer to revise the plan to show tree protection fencing around the neighbor's cherry tree, the 14-inch cherry tree, and the tree that will be able to be saved behind the house.
Okay. Any discussion?
Along the drip line.
Do I have a motion?
All right, I move that we give CAM Development Group the necessary variances to allow it to construct a home on property located on William Street in East 42 William Street in East Millstone, including a variance for up to 22% building coverage and 32% lot coverage, and that we grant them a waiver of the sidewalk and curb requirement, and that they that they enter into discussions with the owners of the adjacent property to allow for a permanent easement to allow the existing sanitary sewer pipe to remain buried on the property and available for emergency repair, and also to enter into an agreement, but not an easement, wherein the tenant that exists on the on the next door property will be allowed to park her vehicle on the front corner of the lot at 42 William Street, and that the owner of the property at 42 William Street also enter into discussions with Mr. Healy to establish an appropriate landscaping for the front of the house, and I think that's it.
No, I think there's also the 32%.
Got that. Got
Did you say? I thought-
32% lot coverage.
Okay.
22% building coverage.
Yeah, but what about this front setback? You wanted them to...
Oh, yes, right. And that they also get we also grant them a variance to allow a shorter front setback, so the house will be set back 15 feet from the street rather than 25.
Two other things. I want to include the requirement that the plans be revised per Cheryl's request, protecting the trees, and that the house that is developed look exactly as the plans.
And the Historical Society?
And that the Historical Society be granted notice when the excavation begins. And that they be permitted to take pictures of anything of interest to them, but their action shall not in any way delay the applicant from completing the construction, and that the utilities on the house, including the air conditioning unit, be shielded by shrubbery so as not to affect the sound next door. And I think that's it.
And the neighbor wanted privacy landscaping.
I think there's getting some trees on both sides to do that.
Yeah, I think that's wrapped in.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's wrapped in.
And if I could suggest one more, too. that
Sure.
Staff has not had a chance yet to review the dimensions of the parking arrangement.
Yep.
I mean, the general direction is that they're going to keep that existing 15 feet off of the right-of-way.
Yep.
And then we also need to look at the width to make sure they can accommodate the neighbor's car as well as their car.